Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for the 2025 Jerusalem Post Annual Conference in Washington. My name is Shanna Fold, and I'll be your host today for our first annual Washington Conference. Can we have a round of applause for that? Today we gather at a moment of profound tension in the Middle East, a time that reminds us just how vital, historic, and unbreakable the alliance between the United States and the State of Israel truly is. This partnership is more than diplomatic, it's moral, it's strategic, it's essential to the stability of the free world. Throughout the day, you'll hear from senators, members of Congress, cabinet-level leaders, diplomats, military officials, innovators, and policy shapers, all of whom play a critical role in the strengthening of this alliance and in shaping the future of Israel and the region. We extend our deep appreciation to Senator Mitch McConnell, whose support made it possible for us to hold this morning's session in this distinguished and beautiful hall. It's such a beauty and a wonder to be here. We are sincerely grateful for his partnership and his assistance. The Jerusalem Post is more than a media organization. It's a bridge between Israel and the global decision makers, a platform where honest dialogue, difficult questions, and strategic clarity take center. With 30 million monthly readers worldwide and millions more engaged across our platforms online, the Jerusalem Post brings Israel's story to every corner of the globe. And as I like to say, Israel news is world news. Today, guests have traveled from Israel, Turkey, Texas, New York, Washington, all along the East Coast and beyond to join a single conversation. One about the future of a country where everything can change in an instant and where the stakes could not be higher, and all of us in the room know that. We thank you all for being here, for lending your voice, and seriously, for being here in the morning and getting the wheels turning about what each of us can do to protect our future and make it better. Kol hakavod, as we say in Hebrew. Respect goes out to all of you for being here this morning and letting us be a part of this essential dialogue that will unfold today. With that, we're going to begin. It is my pleasure to introduce Ronald S. Lauder, the president of the World Jewish Congress and president of the Jerusalem Post Washington Conference. President Lauder is one of the global Jewish community's most prominent statesmen. He'll deliver our opening remarks. He's a staunch defender of Israel and a leading advocate for the global Jewish community. Mr. Lauder brings to this conference a deep sense of mission and commitment, which I'm sure each one of you have felt, to strengthen Israel's standing on the international stage and deepen the bond between the state of Israel and Jewish communities around the world. I just want to quote you, Mr. Lauder. Prior to this event, you stated, "The alliance between Israel and the United States is unshakable and stands as a pillar of strength in an increasingly uncertain world. Today, we will reaffirm this unbreakable partnership and ensure that our two nations continue to lead with strength, courage, clarity, and a shared commitment to safeguarding the future of the free world." Thank you so much, President Lauder.
Thank you and good morning. Okay, like this? Yeah. It's a great pleasure to be here today at our nation's capital at a vital time in the history of this country and for the Jewish people. I want to thank the Jerusalem Post and for organizing this event. But most of all, I thank the Post for being one of the most honest newspapers, not just in Israel, but in the world. Sadly, honesty in reporting today is very rare. I also want to recognize there were senators and congressmen who will be coming here and the administration officials who are with us today and who have been stalwart champions of the Jewish state of Israel and the Jewish people. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here today not with any comfort, but with great urgency, because what we are facing is no minor issue. It's not just a misunderstanding. and it's certainly not an isolated moment. This is a full-scale assault on the truth, on democracy, and on the safety of the Jewish people everywhere, and especially in Israel. For years, some of us warned that anti-Semitism was growing, not in the shadows, but in plain sight, on college campuses, online, in politics, and even right here in the halls of Congress. Now, anti-Semitism is rampant throughout our culture. For years, too many brushed it aside. They said, it's just a few angry kids. It won't go further. This is America. There is no anti-Semitism in America. They were wrong. Over the past 2 years, anti-Semitism didn't just rise. It exploded. Across Europe, we see records that's happening of violence. These are not just statistics. They are people. Right here in the nation's capital, a young couple that worked for the Israeli embassy, two beautiful young people about to get married, were gunned down. Instead of a joyous wedding, their parents had funerals. At a peaceful demonstration for Israel in Colorado, a woman was not just murdered, she was burned alive. In Berlin, a Jewish visitor to the Holocaust Memorial was stabbed. In Manchester, England, worshippers going to Yom Kippur service were run down and stabbed. Killing them, their crime, they were Jews. This is not normal, and it's not accidental, and it's not just criticism of Israel. It's the world's oldest hatred, once again, we're rising its ugly head. Let's be clear as it can be. When someone chants from the river to the sea, they are calling for the elimination of the Jewish state. When people chant, globalize the Intifada, they're really saying Jews everywhere must die. Do you ever think that in Western democracies, and right here in the United States of America, politicians would win elections by attacking Jews, by glorifying violence against Jews, by making excuses for it, by building entire campaigns around a single foreign policy issue, Israel? And yes, we've seen this anti-Semitism before. In the late 1930s, when Hitler was rising in Germany, there was a huge effort by the Nazis to unite anti-Semitism in America. The anti-Jewish radio preacher, Father Conklin. Father Conklin was the Tucker Carlson of the 1930s, had 30 million weekly listeners. That's equivalent to 100 million today. Henry Ford spread his hatred through newspapers and massive amounts of money. In 1938, Hitler unleashed Kristallnacht, and in one night, Germany went from anti-Jewish laws to murder. Hitler wanted to see the world's reaction, and when he saw there was almost none, he told his advisors 4 days later, now we can do whatever we want with the Jews. We saw an even worse reaction after October 7th. Imagine colleges cheering for the Nazis after Kristallnacht. That's what we saw on October 8th. Today, instead of Conklin and Ford, billions of dollars are being spent in social media. This is all well-coordinated, well-financed. They are focused, and they had a head start. We are behind on this, which makes all the more vital to start fighting back immediately. We must spend as much as it takes to turn social media around with the truth, not lies. Remember, social media is a battleground for the next generation, just as education is. And it's not just colleges and universities. Today, our enemies have pushed their indoctrination against Jews and Western civilization all the way down from kindergarten through 12th grade. Textbooks have been changed by radicals. Our history has been distorted. Many young people have been brainwashed to hate Israel and the United States. They were raised with this over the past 20 years, and the largest teachers' union has made anti-Israel part of the curriculum for children from kindergarten on. There is one thought I've had. I've known this for a fact, that colleges and universities have received tens of billions of dollars from foreign countries. These amounts should be known, and yet colleges have been silent. That must change. We should use every law on the books to hold universities and teachers' unions accountable. If schools are breaking the law through Title VI, they should be sued. On that front, the Trump administration has been stellar, and I cannot thank Hamelin Dillon enough for her great work. But our enemies are not just targeting Jews. They target Christians as well, and ultimately Western civilization. Every advance that human beings have been made since the Dark Ages has come through a Judeo-Christian enlightenment. It comes from our shared Bible and moral structure that place entire foundations on the Ten Commandments. For that came democracy, freedom, the highest standard of living in history. And that is what our enemies want to destroy. We cannot let this happen. The same radical Islamists who have attacked Jews are also attacking Christians. There was once strong, vibrant Christian communities throughout the Middle East. Most are now gone. Bethlehem, literally the birthplace of Christianity, was 86% Christian in 1950. Today it's around 10%. One of the most outrageous lies about Israel is that it's an apartheid state. But Israel is the only country in the Middle East that took in Christian refugees, and it's the only country where the Christian population is rising. Now almost 200,000 in Israel. Since 2009, between 50 to 100,000 Christians have been slaughtered in Nigeria. 19,000 churches have been burned to the ground worldwide. 360 million Christians are facing high levels of persecution in Africa, the Middle East, and even Asia. There is a story that has stayed with me. I can never forget it. One time, about 20 years ago, when I was in Israel, I spoke to a man who put his head on my shoulder, sobbing. He was a teacher in a Christian school in the Middle East. He told me that Islamists came to his school and saw the 50 children and gave them two choices: convert to Islam or die. They refused to leave their Christian faith, and all 50 children were beheaded. They allowed him to survive this massacre as a message. In reality, anti-Semitism is really anti-Jewish Christian. There's a reason we must stand up for the Christians, because the fact it's the right thing and moral thing to do. We must stand with them. Because they stand with us. The strongest supporters of Israel in this country are Christians, and they have been our strongest supporters. From the earliest days of the Jewish state, during the Gaza war, when rockets were constantly fired at Israel. Welcome. When there was air raid sirens were wailing every single night, Christian Zionists didn't cancel their trips. They kept coming. And in many cases, they came to help on farms and factories and businesses. It's not by accident that Tucker Carlson said, the people he hates even more than Jews are Christian Zionists. Some of the most vocal and articulate supporters of Israel over the past 2 years have been Douglas Murray, Victor Davis Hanson, Neil Ferguson, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, Rupert Murdoch. None of them Jewish, and right here in Washington, our greatest allies in government have names like John Fetterman, Elise Stefanik, Tom Cotton, Lindsey Graham, Rick Scott, Jackie Rosen, Speaker Johnson, Senate Majority Leader Thune, Secretary of State Rubio, and right down the street from here, the man in the White House, Donald Trump, the most pro-Israel president since Truman. These are our friends, and we are forever grateful. Today, we're in the fight of our lives, and this is how we will fight back. First, we must use social media because that's what young people follow. And I must tell them that you must tell them the truth. Israel must finally get serious about public relations. If Israel can tell its amazing story to the world, then its enemies will, and they've done it now. We must expose every renegade teacher and their unions. We must expect moral courage from our political officials, not excuses. We must rebuild education around truth, not slogans and lies. We will have to reinvent how we teach the history of the Jewish people because it's not working. Too many young people have never heard of the Holocaust. The World Jewish Congress has produced some excellent films that explain what happened. We want to show them in classrooms everywhere in the United States. And any candidate running for a seat in this building, whether for Congress or Senate, whose platform includes anti-Semitism, we will target them as they target us. Accordingly, we will start a fund to help their opponents. We cannot passively sit by and let anti-Zionists determine our future. None of this will be easy. It will take time and effort from all of us. And Jews cannot fight this fight alone. Frankly, we shouldn't have to, because this is not a Jewish issue. It's a democratic issue. It's a moral issue. It's a human issue. Let us build a coalition so strong, so united, so determined that no extremist movement can fracture it. And above all, let us be bridge builders, unshakable, unapologetic, so that the next generation inherits a world defined not by hatred, but by humanity. Finally, just as our parents and grandparents' generation grew up to the force of darkness 80 years ago and stood up with tremendous courage, we must stand up today. This is our time, and this is our fight. We do this we're not doing this for Israel and for the Jewish people. We do this for all people and all mankind. There is so much at stake, but now I know we will prevail. God bless America, the beacon of freedom in the world. God bless Israel. God bless Christians worldwide. And God bless all of you. Thank you. Now it's my great honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick. A leader in the business community, someone we have all admired for years, and now a key secretary of the cabinet of President Trump. And like his boss, a strong supporter of Israel. Howard, welcome. The floor is yours. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So I think the way we're going to work it is, I came to give some prepared remarks, but I'm going to keep them brief, and I think they want to do a sort of fireside chat process instead. So we'll modify things on the fly as we go. All right. So, the United States and Israel have never had a better relationship and that is driven by our president, Donald Trump. Every single time the fake news asked Donald Trump about genocide, about Gaza, about what Israel is doing wrong, 100% of the time, the president responded by saying, "You mean October 7th? You mean when they raped women and chopped up babies and killed babies?" And, he just never, ever gave even a ray of light to the fake news's commentary that was wrong and trying to hijack the discourse. So the president is able to speak with moral clarity. And while that is rare, and it shouldn't be, it should be celebrated because the clear and concise way that he delivers clarity is important. So I am the only Jewish secretary on the cabinet, and I'm proud to serve the president, and he has Israel's back. During the campaign on October 7th, while we were on the campaign, we went to the Ohel and we prayed together for the hostages. That was on October 7th before he was elected. And you all know my story. My company, Cantor Fitzgerald, was located on the 101st to the 105th floors of the World Trade Center. That was my company. I lost 658 people that day of the 960 who worked there. But because it was my company, I lost my brother Gary, who was 36. Lost my best friend Doug from college, he was 39. My other roommate from college, his brother, me. These were all friends. We all hired our friends. It was a great company. And so I understood October 7th more maybe than anyone else. And what I understood about October 7th was that my nightmare was instantaneous, right? All of my brother and my friends, they were all killed. And I knew they were killed. So I could start the process of getting over it. Whereas October 7th with the hostages was a nightmare that was never ending. It kept going and going and going and going. And so last year at Thanksgiving, my wife circled our Thanksgiving table with posters of the hostages and had each person at our Thanksgiving table speak their names. This year, we had Guy Dalal at my Thanksgiving table. I had Evitar David at my Thanksgiving table. I had Avinatan Or and Noah Agramani at my table with their families at our Thanksgiving table. So imagine we went from posters on the wall and reading their names to having literally our friends at the table with us, enjoying Thanksgiving together with freedom in America because of our president. So I'm going to sit and talk, but the moral of the story here is Donald Trump will always have Israel's back. He has reset global trade and put America back on top. And the reason that matters is if you close your eyes for a minute and imagine this world without America on top, without the shining light of America, what does this world look like? So the fact that America must be strong and it must be on top and it must be the light that shines, it is vital, and that's why I am honored to support our president and this administration. Leadership matters. You saw it here. You saw it with Operation Midnight Hammer. You saw what leadership does. Leadership is going to shine light of moral clarity. It's going to shine light on this world. It's going to shine light on freedom, on democracy, and on love. And for our hostages who are home, our freed hostages, and for Israel and for America, I am just proud to serve this administration, and I look forward to talking to you and answering your questions.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Shanna. Welcome. Thank you so much, Secretary, for joining us for a few questions.
No, it's my pleasure.
I'd love for you to take us to the first memory that you have of your Israel support? Was it in the home? Was it at school? Where do you find yourself remembering the importance of furthering the state of Israel and making sure that it continues and keeps its place in the world?
So, my father was a professor, American historian, and my mom was a teacher on Long Island, classic middle-class family. And we would, in New York, and we would go to these Israeli bond dinners. And I don't know if you all know this, but they would just collect as many people as they possibly could and go around the room and ask you to say how many you were buying. Right? Now, my dad wasn't big money, so he'd be buying 50 or $100. But, so we had this pile of Israel bonds. So it was always, so that's my earliest memory was, I went with my dad once when I was, 10 or 11 or 12 to an Israeli bond dinner to keep him company. And so that's my first recollection.
Thank you. I recently got a check for 8 cents from a Israel bond that someone purchased me at my birth.
Exactly.
Secretary, you have transitioned from the business world to the professional world. Where have you seen the most support from both sides? So I'm saying in the business world, do you think that there's a lot of support for Israel? And as you walk through the halls of these buildings here in the Capitol, are you seeing support from both Democrats and Republicans? Is it weakening on one side? Is that just what we're seeing in the media? Talk to us about that.
Well, I've always sort of described the world as a big circle, and the crazy people on the left who touch the crazy people on the right at the bottom of the circle, right? So there's going to be crazy people on both sides down here. Okay, that's just the way it is. And if you haven't heard from the crazy people on the right and you're only listening to the crazy people on the left, that's just because you haven't heard that sound yet. But it's coming. So I think what you have is there are very few people in these buildings who are willing to speak with moral clarity, because they're afraid that if they stick their head up, it'll get banged, right? And that's what happened. They're just trying to get along and trying to get reelected. And it's those with moral clarity that stand out, okay? And President Trump owns it, and he has no fear. And he knows what moral clarity is, and he never wavers from it. And you see that from certain people. You see it from the left, from Richie Torres, who always is strong. And you see it from more of the people in the Republican Party. You just see it across the Republican Party. They are strong and they are together because they know what moral clarity is. And if you know what moral clarity is, then you support Israel. So those two things are true, because Israel is here living clearly on the side of what is morally right and wrong.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions from the crowd? You want to raise your hand if you have a question for the secretary? Oh man, people are shocked. No questions? Okay, so we'll carry on. Tell us, what do you think the future is for the state of Israel? Currently, we have an administration that is seeking to strengthen the ties between Israel and the United States. What's going to happen next?
I think the opportunity to change the economics of the Middle East are the most important opportunity out there. It's, Israel has an economy, it's entrepreneurial, it's driven, it innovates. And, my president believes that if you raise up the people around, that they do business with Israel, the Abraham Accords, that if you study the countries that signed the Abraham Accords, they prospered more than Israel economically because of those accords, right? It was really the exporting of American support and Israeli support economically that drives those countries. So can we export economic value around the region and tie that to an economic positive relationship with Israel so that these ties go together for the benefit of the people in all of these countries? And I think that's what the administration is focused on next, is to how can we build businesses across Israel and the Muslim world and the Arab world in order to strengthen the relationship and make the core foundation built on economic prosperity for the region.
And it's certainly a language that everyone can speak, regarding of where they're from, the language of business. I would like to ask you to share any final words with us, anything that's on your heart today, anything that you've got front of mind.
You know, I'm just so proud to serve in this administration, that the president's actions, you know, if you said a year ago, on his inauguration, that every single hostage, there wouldn't be 5 left or 7 left or the bodies left or anything, that he could literally create the outcome where every single living hostage is released and all bodies, save one, I think, were released to their families, you would say that is not possible. It certainly wasn't possible under the prior administration where nothing happened. But they are all home, all. And you should never forget how fundamental you have to play that whole hand, how strategically, how so many things have to go this way and that way. Look, I have amazing partners. I mean, Steve Witkoff is sensational. Jared Kushner, who I spoke to this morning, these are sensational individuals. And they work for Donald Trump, who has the greatest intuition, or he is the best political athlete you've ever seen in the world, the greatest intuition. He knew how to play it. He knew what to do and how to do it. And the result was something I will always, always be most proud of.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Senator Bernie Moreno is a clear and outspoken friend of the State of Israel in the United States Senate. His committee assignments include banking, commerce, science, transportation, homeland security, and governmental affairs. You have your hands full, sir. Senator Moreno is a clear and outspoken friend of the State of Israel, and he's consistently emphasizing Israel's allies in the region and focusing on bringing his work so that he can balance his work here at home and diplomatically abroad as well. Thank you so much for being with us. We have a short time with you, so I appreciate you sitting down with us.
No problem. If I could just start, maybe change the tone a little bit, because obviously, look, we all understand the issues, a lot of things going on. But I just want to share with you a story, maybe kind of set the stage a little bit differently. So during my campaign, which was, by the way, the most expensive non-presidential election in American history, I don't like to have that honor, but it's $550 million was spent, $350 million against me in negative ads. So I honestly kind of hated myself at the end of the campaign after all those negative ads. But during the campaign, I invited Ben Shapiro to come to Ohio, and Ben said he'd come out there and campaign with me. And he said, are we going to go to Cleveland? Are we going to go to Columbus? Are we going to go to Cincinnati? Three cities where we have a very vibrant Jewish community. I said, absolutely not. I said, we're going to go to Ottawa. He goes, where the heck is Ottawa? And I said, you'll find out. Ottawa, Ohio. If any Jewish person set foot in Ottawa, Ohio, you would increase the Jewish population by exactly 100%. Probably within a 100-mile radius, there isn't a Jewish person in Ottawa, Ohio. It is deeply, deeply evangelical Christian. So Ben goes, are you sure you want me to go there? I said, absolutely. So we go there. 800 people in a town of 11,000 show up to hear his speech. And he, before he goes up, the chairman of the party there talked about how when the strikes in about 4 or 5 years ago happened on October 7th, there had been a gentleman that since 9/11 had been driving his pickup truck around Ottawa with an American flag for 2 decades. And when October 7th happened, he put an Israeli flag on his pickup truck and would drive around the town. And people would stop him and they would sign the flag. And Ben heard this story, and he was shaken by it. And then at the end of his speech, they presented him this flag that you couldn't see anything because literally, I think 11,000 people signed both sides of this Israeli flag and gave that to him. And it was an emotional moment. And I share that story with you only to let you know you have tremendous allies, as Mr. Lauder said, in the Christian community, tremendous allies. Because what Christians like myself understand is without the state of Israel, protecting the Holy Lands, Christianity would be wiped off the map immediately following what would happen if Israel were to fall. And that's where you have that kind of bond. So I think it's important for you to know that. I think in an area of so much bad news that you hear all the time, there is a lot of positive that comes from the Christian community. And I think tapping into that, as was spoken about at the beginning, is really, really important.
Yes. Thank you so much. We have a short another story, and then we have one policy question.
Very, very, very short, quick story. I'm new to D.C. I'd never spent more than 48 hours in my life in Washington, D.C. prior to January 3rd. Never been in elected office, never done this ever in my life. So anyway, we had an event at the White House one night. Shockingly ran late, missed my flight home. My wife was with me. We said, let's be tourists in D.C. This is in the summer. So my wife said, that's great. So we had brunch. We walked all the way to the mall. And during different stops, I kept looking at people, and people were just, you kind of sense that people are looking at you like in a weird face. I'm like, I wonder why that is. It can't be because people recognize me. There's just no way. I'm a new senator. There's no chance of that. So we're walking down the mall, and this guy with a Israel is murdering Palestinians t-shirt beelines it up to my wife and I, just starts yelling at my wife and I. And my wife, by the way, gave it so back to this guy with, by the way, facts of what's actually going on in the Middle East. The guy actually ran off. I think my wife scared him. And I turned to my wife and I go, I can't believe somebody in Washington, D.C. after only 6 months would recognize me. And she hits me and goes, you idiot, they're targeting me. I'm like, what do you mean? And she points to her hat, and it's a Friends of the IDF hat that she had on. And by the way, my wife is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Episcopalian from Valparaiso, Indiana. But you won't find a more ardent supporter of Israel. In fact, when we met with your prime minister, I sat down and I said, just so you know, my wife thinks you're soft. And he goes, don't worry, my wife does too.
Thank you so much. I'd like to ask you a question that came up for some of us Israeli Americans. We understand that you're working on a policy to create a one citizenship only for U.S. citizens.
No, what we're looking to do is for new naturalized citizens on a go-forward basis, like myself, who is naturalized. I was born in Colombia, South America. You have to pledge allegiance only to the U.S. when you become a naturalized citizen. And so the idea is to do that for new naturalized citizens.
And so will those of us who have dual citizens, will they be able to maintain their passport?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with people today. It has to do with new naturalized citizens on a go-forward basis.
And those naturalized citizens will be able to hold on to their previous passports as well?
No, not if you're a new naturalized citizen to the U.S.
So you have to leave behind your previous passports and enter into...
Well, the naturalization ceremony today asks you to, when again, you're not born in the U.S., to pledge allegiance only to the U.S.
Okay, thank you. Any final remarks that you'd like to make for us today?
Look, I think I would just leave you with this. Way too much time was spent ignoring the obvious reasons for anti-Semitism in the U.S. What's happening is you have a lot of young people in this country, and my son is probably a good example of one who sees it with his friend group, who's 27 years old. Obviously, my son is very pro-Israel, otherwise his mother would murder him, but his friends, you wonder why, like what's the reason? And part of it, of course, is what they're indoctrinated with in schools. But the other one is these are disaffected kids who don't feel the American dream applies to them. They don't think they can afford a home. They don't think they can afford a car. They don't think they can get married or raise kids or have a normal family. And of course, that's all because of terrible, terrible policies that have happened here in Washington, D.C. And what's happened is people are tapping into who do you blame for that? And it's no surprise that when hate like that rises, that there's going to be anti-Semitism. And I would echo what Mr. Lauder started with. Israel does a great job of winning the battles in the Middle East. It's been a great time for Israel, but we lose the propaganda war constantly. We don't tell the story of where are the freest women in the Middle East? Israel. In Israel. Where are the freest gay people in the Middle East? In Israel. Where are you have the most democratic roots in the Middle East? In Israel. Do those stories get told? No. I encourage you, please, fight the PR battle as well as you fought the military battle. And if you do that, we can eradicate anti-Semitism once for all in America.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you. And thank you to your wife for being such a staunch supporter of Israel.
I would like to share a personal story about Gideon Sa'ar, which will tell you more about the person, because as President Lauder said, moral clarity is something that is very rare to find, not only in American society and Western societies around the world, but unfortunately even in this building. Years ago, when Gideon Sa'ar held one of his many ministries, and he's worked his way up through the country through all the ministries, he was education minister. At the time, he was a young man, and neither of us had gray hair. And I came to see him because the city of Lod, outside Tel Aviv, was a crime-ridden city. There were a lot of problems there. There was low unemployment. The young people simply had nothing to do but become involved in all sorts of criminal activity. And I was approached by some young people who wanted to start a Hesder Yeshiva there. A Hesder Yeshiva, for most of you know, some of you don't know, are yeshivas where the students serve in the army. They're observant, they're Orthodox, but they serve full-time in the army, and many of them go on to make careers of it. They wanted to open a Hesder Yeshiva in the city of Lod because they felt it would benefit the community. They could do outreach to some of the young people. So I approached Education Minister Gideon Sa'ar, told him about the idea. He immediately liked the idea. He said, let's go visit. But there was one problem. He said, we can get it done next year because the budget for this year is already spoken for. So I went to see our good friend Yuval Steinitz, who at the time was the finance minister, a very good friend of Gideon Sa'ar. Due to Gideon Sa'ar's moving things and priorities around, it took place 3 months later. The Hesder Yeshiva opened, it was open to all, and the crime rate in Lod over the next 5 years dropped close to 10% per year and continued since then. So that's what I talk about when they say moral clarity. Gideon Sa'ar is the epitome of moral clarity in the Knesset, and his future is just beginning. His past is just his foundation, what brought him today. His future is beginning. We will see more of him in Israel, and more important, we'll see more of him in Washington. Would you please welcome Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar.
Thank you very much, Minister Sa'ar, for joining us. Yesterday, just to tell those of you who don't know, Minister Sa'ar had quite an historic event, we can call it. 20 years that no relations with Bolivia. Israel and Bolivia renewed yesterday their ties after 20 years. And this is quite, a lot of Israelis like to go to Bolivia, which was blocked from them, and now it happened.
Yeah, I never been there, but I should.
This is your time.
Yeah. Well, I realized we had an opportunity, and by the way, I think we are only in the beginning of a new wave in Latin America of a change from far left to center-right governments, and that's exactly what happened in Bolivia. And I called the elected president, President Paz, one day after the elections 2 months ago, and we agreed to work very intensively to do that. So yesterday it was accomplished. We signed on renewal of the diplomatic relations with Bolivia, but I believe it's only the beginning. We are making huge progress in our relations with so many Latin America countries like Ecuador, like Costa Rica. Of course, we are great with Argentina and Paraguay. But I believe that we will see the continuation of this trend next week in the second round of the elections in Chile and so on. So we'll need to accommodate. Bolivia was kept in captivity by a far left connected to narco-terrorists, connected to Iran and its allies. So I believe that today everyone that can help, surely the U.S. Is number one on that, to bring this country on the right path. They want to do huge economic reforms. It's crucial because other countries will look at it and will see, and to the extent we can contribute, we'll do that, as small as we are.
And you said Iran, so I'll start with Iran. How close are the Iranians, when Israel went to the 12-day war, one of the reasons was the Iranian ballistic stockpile. How close Iran is reaching this red line, as Israel sees it, to this ballistic missile stockpile, meaning they produced again? How Israel is close to going to a phase 2 of this 12-day war?
Well, clearly it's not the headline I will give you this morning.
No, I hope so. I hope to get it, but...
Well, it is clear that under this regime, the Iranian regime hadn't abandoned any of its strategic objectives, not with regard to ballistic missiles program, not with regard to restoring the proxies, not with regard to restoring its nuclear program. They hadn't come back to enrichment yet, but we are following the situation there. And we follow what they are doing also in the ballistic missiles program. They are not yet doing it to the extent they planned to do before the war, or even did before the war, but surely they are trying to restore that.
And let's talk about Gaza. We are getting close to phase 2, as President Trump has said in recent weeks. First of all, what's your view about this phase 2? And the follow-up question for that, do you see a role to the Palestinian Authority in Gaza in this phase 2?
All the answers are in the program itself. And at the heart of phase 2 is the disarmament of Hamas and the demilitarization of Gaza Strip. As we've heard just lately this weekend, Khaled Mashal, he spoke clearly against that. So in a certain time, that will need to be changed. I mean, now they have all kinds of strange idea that disarmament is not, for example, includes the weapons, the guns.
Only heavy weapons.
No, they say, well, some of the things, maybe, missiles, which they don't have so much today, but not the guns and so on. So these games will be over in a certain time.
Israel won't agree to such a deal, right?
It's not only an Israeli position. It's the plan of the President of the United States that was supported by a huge international consensus. And I can assure you that also this administration is not thinking to abandon that. So with regard to the PA, first of all, they will not rule Gaza Strip. It will be controlled by local Gazans that will be in the administrative. Now, first of all, the Americans are drafting the legal framework of the Board of Peace and the organizations that will be underneath it. But in order to be relevant, the Palestinian Authority knows what they should do. What they should do is described on the 2020 peace plan of President Trump. They should stop pay for slay, which they continue. By the way, they spend more money on pay for slay during 2025 than they did on 2024. They should stop incitement in primary school, in kindergartens. There's a list of reforms they hadn't even began to deal with. So it is very clear that for the time being they cannot be relevant. Let's see whether they will do what they for years and years prevented from doing.
Do you see a situation that Gaza is being reconstructed before Hamas is demilitarized?
There is a clear connection in the plan itself between reconstruction, at least reconstruction after or beyond the yellow line, to the disarmament. Otherwise, you are just rearming Hamas for the next round, and I'm sure that won't happen.
Let's ask about Lebanon. You know, it's boiling already. We see intense Israeli strike. We see comments saying Hezbollah is getting stronger and Lebanon's army isn't doing anything. At what point will Israel say we need to go all in again? What's the red line regarding Hezbollah building or the situation when Israel says we need to go back all in like there was for 2 years?
I will not say they are not doing anything, but what they are doing is, to say the least, not enough, including southern to the Litani River. They are, for example, they are not doing disarmament in private property, which we know they have a lot, and they are not doing it all, and at least until today, northern to the Litani River. So they should act. They should act. It's also for the benefit of Lebanon as a country. If they want to be free from Iranian occupation, they must end with this phenomenon of Hezbollah as the strongest military force. And this is what was agreed. We are following that. We will insist on that. And when people are saying, you are targeting, you are acting in Lebanon, you are acting against Hezbollah objectives, you are violating Lebanon's sovereignty, I'm saying it's not us. Hezbollah is violating Lebanon's sovereignty. When Hezbollah will be dismantled, it's the time when Lebanon will be finally sovereign. So we are helping, acting against Hezbollah, we are helping Lebanon's sovereignty, not breaching it.
Do you think the Lebanese government want to demilitarize or they can't do it?
I think they want to do it, but I think they have another thing here. They have an history of internal wars, civil war in Lebanon. They are very much afraid to go back to these days. They have in their army is very much infiltrated by Hezbollah. 30% of their Lebanese army are Shiites. It's the same families that from them they recruit soldiers for the Hezbollah. So it's more complicated and they should get more pressure in order to do it because simply that's what we don't have any serious disputes with the country of Lebanon. We have very minor territorial disputes, very minor, can be solved easily. The only thing that stands between a possible peace and normalization of Israel with Lebanon are Hezbollah. This is to be understood.
How do you see the meetings between the civilians last week? The Israeli civilian and a Lebanese non-army official? The fact that two...
I think it's good. It's something that was discussed with the United States. It's to emphasize there might be more than military dimension. But to tell you the truth, everything is, I would say, number two. Number one issue is how you dismantle Hezbollah. So look what we have here. Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. Same problem of terror states. If these terror states will not be dismantled, disarmed, first of all, we will not have security in Israel. We will not have stability in this region. And the areas that they are acting from will not be free.
I think the final question should be one more country left, which is Syria. We know what was your position in the past about al-Shara Julani, the president of Syria. You weren't too positive of him. You thought Israel couldn't trust him, let's say, automatically. Has your view changed today from what you've seen in recent months? And do you think Israel is or can close a deal, security pact, of course, with the Syrian government?
Unfortunately, we went far from there. They took some steps. They brought some preconditions as an Israeli withdrawal, not in the context from the points we took on December 24, when everyone must know the disengagement from the disengagement agreement from 1974 was violated from their side on the same day that the coup d'etat occurred. This is the context when we took the upper positions along the border. So they put some preconditions that we should withdraw from there in a context of a security agreement, not even in the context of a peace and normalization agreement. This is not acceptable. And they are also doing some other things on the ground which are taking us far from this point. Do we want to reach a security agreement with them? Yes, we want to do it. I hope they will return to a much more realistic approach. It's not what we see during the last weeks.
Thank you very much, Minister Saar, and good luck in your next visit, next meeting with Secretary Rubio.
Thank you for inviting and having me. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. At the end of Israel's War of Independence, the founder of the Jerusalem Post, Gershon Agron, asked Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, "Now, in our Hebrew state, is an English language paper needed anymore?" And Ben-Gurion replied immediately, "Now, more than ever before." On behalf of the Knesset and the people of Israel, I want to reaffirm that same sentiment today. The Jerusalem Post remains as vital now as it was in 1948. Thank you for connecting Israel to the world. Today, that very same connection faces new pressures. Across the political spectrum in America, people are debating the nation's role in the world, including its relationship with Israel. Coming from the Knesset, I understand the central place of debate in every democracy. I offer this message with full respect for America's internal process, yet with honesty about the stakes we share. For just as history offers lessons worth remembering, so do the events of our time. Over the last 2 years, Israel's story has underscored several realities that speak directly to those discussions, especially concerning the intentions and reach of America's adversaries and the enduring value of strong, reliable allies. First, the atrocities of October 7th proved that radical regimes do not build war machines, terror networks, and nuclear programs for peaceful purposes. If you want to know their aims, listen to their words. Death to Israel, death to America. Second, the war that followed October 7th revealed how quickly foreign threats can affect American interests. Iranian proxies struck American bases. The Houthis turned the Red Sea into a war zone, disrupting global trade and affecting American workers. And the same regime behind these attacks even dared to target President Trump. Third, Israel confirmed that strong allies do not drain America's strength, they multiply it. Israel helped prevent an attempt by the Ayatollah regime of Iran to dominate a region vital to global stability and American interests. And for the $3.8 billion America invests annually in Israel, the returns are estimated at $48 billion in defense contracts, shared research and development, and real-world testing that accelerates U.S. hardware upgrades. Israeli technologies protect American troops. Our medical innovations save American lives. Our cyber units shield American networks. Our intelligence defends the American homeland. Many want access to Israel's capabilities, but guess who gets them? America first. Finally, President Trump proved that resolute, decisive leadership does not provoke chaos, it prevents it. Last June, Israel rose from the depths of October 7th to command the skies above Iran. America had a chance to stop the most dangerous regime from getting the most dangerous weapon. Though many warned of catastrophe, President Trump recognized the moment's gravity and demonstrated the power of the technique he pioneered. 3 words: peace through strength. And for that reason, I proudly join Speaker Mike Johnson, a leader of unyielding moral clarity, in uniting parliamentary leaders worldwide to nominate President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Yesterday, we signed a document declaring that few have done more to advance the cause of peace, and none are more worthy of that honor. My friends, in the turbulent Middle East, Israel is one of the few nations where the American flag is celebrated, not desecrated. Israel's admiration for America comes from a simple conviction that when America rises, humanity rises with it. That a great America strengthens human rights, the rule of law, and the freedom of speech, religion, and the press. That is why America First is not only an American interest, it is an Israeli interest, and more broadly, a human interest. America's greatest leaders understood this deeper truth. Thomas Paine wrote, "The cause of America is the cause of all mankind." Lincoln called America the last best hope of earth. Reagan spoke of America as a beacon of freedom for all the peoples of the earth. My friends, next week, Jews worldwide will celebrate Hanukkah. We recall the courage of a small band of brothers from Modi'in who, through faith in God and in themselves, stepped into leadership when it was needed the most. After October 7th, Prime Minister Netanyahu embraced that same mandate on a regional scale, vowing to change the face of the Middle East for the better. And with that resolve, Israel confronted a 7-armed Goliath. And once again, David prevailed. In defending the axis of terror, in defeating the axis of terror, Israel emerged as a guiding light for our region. In supporting us, America has emerged as the pillar of fire that guides the whole free world. My friends, with that same belief in liberty's power to lead, let us work together to preserve the vital bonds between the United States and Israel. Let us do so for a safer, freer, brighter tomorrow, but let us do so today. Thank you. Happy Hanukkah and Merry Christmas, everyone.
I'd like to please welcome Senator Rick Scott, one of Israel's foremost defenders since October 7th and among the Senate's most vocal allies. A steadfast friend of Israel, Senator Scott has also championed the safety and dignity of American Jewish communities nationwide, condemning anti-Semitism and underscoring the moral imperative of standing with both Israel and the Jewish people around the world. Thank you so much. Please join us. Doing great. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's nice to be with you. It's nice to be here. It's good that you're doing this event. I think you should be on Capitol Hill. I think it's if you look at support of Israel, if you're not here, right, the bad guys are. I mean, actually here all the time. You know, they yell at us, they protest us, So you have to be here and you have to lobby for what you believe in.
Absolutely. You're in this building and you're dealing with a lot of government officials. So I want to ask you this question about the day after October 7th. The tide so quickly turned after October 7th. I don't even think that the Jewish community had 24 hours to grieve the losses that we had before global anti-Israel, anti-Jewish sentiment sprung up. So the reason I mention you being in this building is because I want you to speak about the American civilians, the people on the ground. What are you hearing from them? And do you believe that the anti-Israel voice is the voice of America?
Well, I don't think it's clearly not the voice of America. I'm from Florida, so it's clearly not the voice of Florida. So we have a significant Jewish population in our state, and they're very vocal, as you would expect, and they've oftentimes been mistreated. I was governor from 2011 to 2019. We dealt with anti-Semitism. I think it started when I first became governor at FAU University down in Palm Beach, and we went through fixing the board, got a new president, all these things. So, but we've been dealing with anti-Semitism, but it's not what the normal person thinks. The normal person does not believe in hatred. The normal person is not anti-Jewish. The normal person doesn't believe in anti-Semitism. But there's people who are crazy. I mean, you see it up here. You don't see it in my state as much, but you see it up here all the time. And they're up here organized in protest. I don't know who they're paid for. It's all paid for. These people are all paid, to do this. But they're here. So I think you have to have moral clarity, and you have to be very outspoken. If you get in a leadership position, you've got to be very clear that hatred in any form, anti-Semitism in any form, is wrong, and you've got to call it out. And you've got to call the people out that support it. But I mean, tell you, they're organized. Well, I don't see it as much in Florida, but they're organized here.
How much would you say eradicating hatred or silencing hatred or putting these nasty voices to the side, how much is that coming from culture? How much is that coming from government? And can government policies push this down?
Well, clearly government could do the right thing, right? But you have to remember, in a republic, we respond to our voters, or you don't get elected. And so, it's just the way the system works. And so I think the anti-Jewish crowd, they're doing a good job of going out and trying to educate people that there's something wrong with Jews, whatever you want to argue, that's what they're doing. And so if we're not on the other side of that, explaining that that's just pure hatred for no reason, then they're going to win. I've never understood anti-Semitism. I'm not Jewish. I've never understood it. It doesn't make sense to me. I didn't grow up in a family that believed in hatred, right, of any sort. So my parents were devout Christians, and so they never believed that. But there's people that are anti. There's just a lot of people that are anti-Jewish. So what government can do is we have laws. We can enforce them. People that are elected can be very vocal. So if you've got the nice title of a U.S. senator, you have the opportunity to be on TV. You have the opportunity to do posts. You have the opportunity to do op-eds. You have the opportunity to do speeches. You have the opportunity to support bills. So you have all. So you should be doing all those things.
And certainly you are. So thank you so much for that.
So I tell you, thank you. The one thing that we tried, right after October 7th. If you think about what's happening with Ukraine and what's happened with Israel. So with Ukraine, the first few months, there was unbelievable support of Ukraine. And then it got off the front pages, right? I think what the IDF did and what the Israeli government did and a lot of outside groups did, they did a really good job of explaining the atrocities. While they were horrible to see, the videos had an impact when they showed what happened. And when you went over there, like I've been to Israel quite a few times and went to Kfar Aza, and you saw the homes that I'd been in before, and hear the stories of the people that the babies were murdered, where I'd been, and the young lady was murdered. They had the audio, and hear the stories. So I think Israel's done a way better job, but it's a fight, and unfortunately, a lot of people, it's just not important to them. I mean, what I find interesting, and it's not just anti-Semitism. I talk to people, and they say, "Well, why is that my issue? Why do I care?" Well, they're human beings, right? And they should be treated with respect. And but I think we all have to be way more vocal. So I think you need, excuse me, you need to be here, and you need to build relationships. Like Norm has relationships with every U.S. senator. I don't know how many House members he's got. I bet he knows every U.S. senator. That matters. And everybody should know their U.S. senator, or their 2 U.S. senators, and their House members, and be able to call on them. And the other thing I believe in is you have to be involved in other people's issues if you hope for them to be involved in your issue. If you just sit there and say, "I only have my issue, and I'm only care about mine, I don't care about anybody else," you're going to be on an island, and that's not smart. Because when you need them, they're going to say, "Well, where were you on my issue?" So I think that we all have to be way more vocal about all hatred, all atrocities.
Thank you so much. I think that so many people in this room are really attuned to the issues of anti-Israel hate. And the voices that I'm getting from my contemporaries are questions about funding of the Israeli government, as they believe, as they say it. The U.S. is spending all of this money, and as we heard from the Speaker of the Knesset just before, what's happening is that by investing in Israel, the United States is getting so much defense technology out of it and multiplying the amount of money too as well. How do you respond to people who say that America shouldn't be involved in supporting Israel? How do you respond to that?
Well, I'm on Armed Services, so that's where a lot of the authorization stuff comes up through. So my response to them is simply that, look, it's probably might be our number 1 ally in the world. Clearly, it's the number 1 ally in the Middle East. It's the only democracy in the Middle East. They're not asking us to put our men and women at risk. They want us to fight their war for them, right? But they do need our help, and they're a tough neighborhood. And if we don't fight for freedom and democracy around the world, it's going to be a pretty lonely place. And that's true. That's true for all of our allies. If we don't figure out that we have people, governments, not necessarily the people of those countries, but we have governments that have decided to be our enemy. They made that choice. Communist China has decided to be our enemy. Russia, Iran, right? North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua. We have people that want to destroy our way of life, and they're trying every day. And so eventually I think what's going to happen, and primarily because of Communist China, we're going to decouple. There's going to be 2 trading systems. There's going to be the American-led trading system. There's going to be the Chinese-led trading system. And then the same thing's going to be with our military assets. So I think that's where we're going, and we need to wake up, because the bad guys want to destroy all of our ways of life, whether it's in Israel or whether it's the United States.
Thank you so much for doing all of the things that you talked about writing, about speaking, about listening to your people in your state. Thank you so much.
I was entrusted with leading Israel's only national emergency medical service, Magen David Adom. In a moment, I will share with you why this role holds special meaning. But first, I want to share with you 3 crucial lessons Israel has learned over the past 2 years. On October 7th, Israel was shattered like never before. 1,200 murdered, 251 taken hostage. But we rose, fighting like lions, and today, thank God, we are a regional superpower. From this emerges the first lesson, and I'll say it in Hebrew. Hakam lehorgecha, hashkem lehorgo. If someone rises to kill you, strike first. For years, Israel believed that quiet meant safety. October 7th ended that illusion. From that day, Israel committed itself to preemptive action. Never again will we wait for the first shot. Because when Israel stands firm, the path to peace becomes possible. Strength brings peace. Weakness invites aggression. But striking first is not only a military doctrine, it must also be a diplomatic doctrine. And this is the second lesson. We must fight for our global standing with the same resolve, the same resources, and the same innovation we bring to every other arena. Because, friends, today, Israel's branding is not a luxury. It's a matter of our national security. And on this front, two actors are poisoning the minds of the next generation: the United Nations and Qatar. Two factories of falsehoods that erode our shared values and bonds. Let's begin with the UN. Founded to uphold peace, but now an amplifier for the world's worst regimes. Just look at its agencies. Under UNRWA, Hamas expanded and turned Gaza into a terror base. Under UNIFIL, Hezbollah transformed southern Lebanon into a terror stronghold. This is why every dollar invested in the UN is not only a waste, it works against American interests and values. If you want the proof, just look at whom the UN elevates. Iran chaired a disarmament committee. Cuba, Sudan, and China sit on the Human Rights Council. And there are countless more examples. And Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East, we receive 70% of all condemnations, more than Iran, Russia, and North Korea combined. This isn't diplomacy, it's moral bankruptcy. And that is why this institution can no longer be defended. Friends, here in Senate, on Capitol Hill, the UN must be defunded completely. And with most UN member states not democracies at all, the United States should stop funding the UN with nearly $20 billion a year and lead an effort to dismantle it and build a league of real democracies in its place. But even if we silence the amplifiers, we still must confront the source of the lies. And that source is Qatar. Qatar, dear friends, presents itself as a moderate actor while funding Hamas, promoting the Muslim Brotherhood, and sheltering jihadists. Its mission is ideological: to export a radical worldview and condition the free world to absorb it. It spreads anti-Semitism and anti-Western propaganda through Al Jazeera, through the Doha Forum, media partnerships, and cultivated influencers, we all know who I mean, while pouring billions into American universities to buy influence and legitimacy. A regime that bankrolls terror should not shape the education of America's youth. A state that hosts Hamas commanders cannot claim to be a neutral mediator. Qatar learned a simple truth. If you host enough conferences, podcasts, and glossy summits, people forget that you also host the baby killers of Hamas terrorists. And it is no coincidence that in 2017, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt cut ties with Qatar, accusing it of financing terror and empowering radical Islamists. This is why, dear friends, we should all today commend President Trump for advancing the designation of the Muslim Brotherhood chapters as terrorist organizations. And we must remember, the Muslim Brotherhood is Qatar's ideological weapon and operational arm. And this is the choice before the free world: a secure future for the West, or allowing Qatar's terror financiers to set the terms. You cannot have both. And if Qatar continues shaping our discourse, we will continue to see young Americans waving Hamas flags while burning American ones. Friends, the third lesson, the last lesson, is the one that defines my work today, protecting Israel's home front. Today, the home front is not the background of the war. It is the battlefield our enemies try to reach first. Our enemies, they know that they cannot defeat the IDF, so they strike our communities. They want to drive us away from our homeland in fear. And on October 7th, we learned a devastating lesson written in blood. What we failed to prepare for in calm, we pay for in crisis. So when we strengthen the home front, when help arrives in second, when first responders have the best equipment, armored ambulances, and top training, the enemy's strategy collapses. And that is where Magen David Adom is key. This is why I chose to move from the diplomatic arena to Magen David Adom and help strengthen their mission. Because today, Magen David Adom is the backbone of Israel's resilience. Just as Israel has only one army and only one police force, it has only one national emergency medical service, Magen David Adom. 34,000 volunteers, 2,000 ambulances, 95% of Israel's emergencies answered or responded by Magen David Adom. Internalize it, 95%. We built Israel's only underground missile-proof blood center. We operate one of the most advanced AI-driven dispatch systems in the world. We protect Israel's most vulnerable, including premature infants, through our National Human Milk Bank. If you haven't visited there, I invite you. And on October 7th, MDA teams ran toward the fire, risking their lives to save others and paying the ultimate price. The lesson is clear. If the enemy targets the home front must be unbreakable. So friends, these three lessons are our roadmap forward. If we strike first, if we defend the truth, and if we protect every life on our home front, no enemy, no lie, and no terror will break the spirit of Israel. Together with our American allies, we will secure a future worthy of our children. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I cannot let this opportunity pass. I had wanted to introduce Gilad Erdan, but I was not on the program to introduce him. But I must tell you, Israel fights several wars. Of equal importance, and perhaps the second most important in the physical war, is the war of Hasbara. I cannot think of an ambassador who had to endure more pressure and tougher conditions at the UN than Gilad Erdan when he served as UN ambassador during the wartime. So thank you for your service. We talk about moral clarity, and as a minister, he was popular in the entire Knesset across the aisle. We honor the noble work that you are doing for Magen David Adom. We appreciate you representing the people on the border. However, we cannot wait for you to come back and do even more and greater things in the government in the future.
Since October 7th, El Al, Israel Airlines, has served as the bridge connecting Israel with the world, and we all know it because we've all been on their planes, transporting passengers and essential cargo. Over the past 2 years, despite operational challenges, El Al maintained its flight schedule as planned and added rescue flights to bring Israelis home, including soldiers, reservists, families of hostages, the wounded, and bereaved families from a number of destinations around the world, and it was reliable. Amikam Ben-Zvi, chairman of El Al Israel Airlines, says, quote, "We will continue working to increase the frequency of our flights to destinations in the United States to further strengthen the connection between Jewish communities and the state of Israel, and to bring passengers from the United States to Israel as well, in accordance with El Al's high service standards. Demand for travel among the Israeli public, similar to the global trend, continues to grow, which will not be possible without a strong El Al. How are you going to get people from one place to the other when there's a big ocean in between? Please welcome Amikam Ben Zvi, the chairman of El Al Israel Airlines.
Boker Tov. Good morning, distinguished guests of the Jerusalem Post Washington Conference. The Speaker of the Knesset is not here anymore. Ministers and members of the Israeli government, members of the American administration, leaders of the Jewish communities in the United States, media professionals, and all honored guests. I'm honored to deliver these remarks as chairman of the Board of El Al on behalf of El Al, the Israeli national carrier, the largest airline in Israel, which proudly carries the Israeli flag on the tail of its aircraft, a sight that moves me every time, and I'm sure it moves you all as well. I would like to briefly share the story that connected me to El Al. About 6 years ago, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. Kenny Rosenberg from the United States contacted me and said, Amikam, I want to acquire control of El Al, and Amikam, I ask you to carry out the purchase for me. At that time, El Al was in a difficult economic and financial situation due to the pandemic that shook the aviation industry worldwide. Kenny's words surprised me, and I asked him, are you sure you want to acquire control of El Al with all the challenges involved and at this timing? Mr. Rosenberg firmly repeated that this was his wish. We will change the world. We will make a big Kiddush Hashem. Kenny inspired me to take on the task with a clear vision to bring El Al to a new era. The process was indeed complex and was ultimately carried out through a public offering with the involvement of the Ministry of Finance of Israel. People look at us as we were crazy and knew nothing about aviation. But in retrospect, the whole acquisitions story is nothing short of a great miracle, because everyone knows how El Al was soared since then. El Al proves every day and in every situation that the state of Israel and the citizens have someone to rely on. El Al was established together with the state of Israel about 77 years ago. Today, we employ about 6,000 dedicated and loyal employees, including pilots, flight attendants, maintenance workers, administrative staff, and other professions. El Al's people are the reflection of the Israeli society, spanning the social spectrum and age range. Each and every day, and every one of them forms the mosaic that enables El Al to achieve its success and to be הכי בבית בעולם. El Al aircraft are flown by more than 600 pilots who, in addition to fulfilling their roles in the company, also serve in the reserve to defend our country and to attack our enemies. These are the best pilots in the world. Since outbreak of the war, El Al has not stopped its flights except during the dates of the war with Iran, following the government decision to close the skies. While many airlines halted their operations in Israel, it was clear to us that we would do everything possible to continue connecting Israel to the world while taking calculated risks. We flew security and rescue personnel, families out of hostages, families who lost their loved ones, as well as essential strategic cargo. During this period, we also conducted rescue flights, some of which remain confidential. We fly about 6.5 million passengers a year, safely and securely, with a fleet of 48 aircraft. The fleet is expected to grow to 61 by 2030 as part of the company's strategic growth plan for the coming years. All of our fleet is Boeing. In conclusion, honored guests, it's important to remember that Israeli aviation is a vital infrastructure for the state of Israel, not only in times of emergency, but also in routine. A strong and resilient El Al will ensure Israel's continued connection to the world. El Al is a strategic asset of the highest order for the state of Israel, which is surrounded by enemies, serving as the air bridge connecting. On behalf of El Al, I promise you, El Al, with God's help, will continue to flourish and to fulfill the strategic mission for our country, Israel. Thank you very much.
Please welcome Rabbi Yehuda Kaplan, nominated as U.S. Special Envoy for Monitoring and Combating Anti-Semitism, who will be interviewed by Gabe Groisman, Conference Ambassador and Head of Groisman LLC. Thank you.
Good morning. To the chairman of El Al, if you can help us figure out why I can never get the upgrades. I always bid the highest amount. It's not working. First of all, I wanted to clarify a very important distinction with our guest that's here today. Rabbi Yehuda Kaplan there's a cloture vote today, and then it should be done by the end of this week, God willing, will be actually ambassador at large to combat anti-Semitism around the world. Ambassador, rabbi, ambassador, to be, whatever I'm supposed to use. This is a very important position. We know with President Trump in the Oval Office, being charged as one of his ambassadors on something, you're walking into a room on his behalf. So let's start there as one of your first interviews now or discussions in this role. Please tell us a little bit about your relationship with the president and the president's position on fighting anti-Semitism here domestically and abroad.
So I have a long-standing relationship with the president that goes back well over 30 years. But mostly through charity things, that people don't understand what a generous and kind man that he is. When he had airlines and what he had in business, he would very quietly do a tremendous amount of charity that people do not know about. I can tell you at least 15 incidents that I know where he flew families for surgeries, children that needed to go to different arenas for special treatments. He went out of his way, and in general, is an extremely generous and kind person. Anybody who's worked for him on his staff can tell you that he cares about them, cares about their families. That's the president. I got involved, per se, more on the anti-Semitism side when I had a dinner with him during the month of April, during the campaign, and he said, I don't understand why I don't have more of the Jewish vote. I have 27, 29%. How do we get up to 40? If I'll get 40%, I'll be the next president. And I honestly told him and started going through the differences between the Jewish communities, Reform, Orthodox, Conservative. Within each one, there's different breaks. And he said to me at the time, let's get to 40. And we did an event at Bedminster, which was probably one of the more historic events in the Jewish community, where members of the Orthodox community, the conservative community, Reform community, business leaders, 300 of America's greatest Jewish leaders were in attendance. And the president and Dr. Adelson and myself were the speakers.
And the president laid out a clear, decisive plan on how he would fight anti-Semitism, starting with college campuses. And he said, and he pledged there, that I am going to fight Islamic terrorism, I'm going to bring the hostages back, and I'm going to make sure that a mother who sends their child to a college campus does not have to worry that they should have religious liberty and freedom. That was his mandate where he laid that out, and later on he expanded it. October 7th, the first anniversary after October 7th, I hosted the memorial at Doral, where the president walked into a room that had 110 empty chairs for the hostages at the time who had not been returned, each with a picture and a rose. 1,200 pictures of victims who had been killed on October 7th, 1,200 memorial candles, and the president walked into the room and he said, I give you my word, Rabbi, this is not happening again, never on my watch. And it affected him. You could see visibly in the pictures, he gave an unbelievable speech. And for those of you that know the president, I don't think he used the term I once. He used we must. And then he called me April, about a day before Pesach. For those of you who know what goes on in a house Erev Pesach, I was in my office, the phone rang, and he started the conversation with, you're my rabbi, Yehuda. I would like you to serve my country. Did not get into any roles. I answered, yes, Mr. President, of course I will serve. And then he said, I want you to be responsible for every Jew in the world. For those of you who understand what a daunting task that is, and understand all the divergence and differences within the Jewish community, it is a very, very difficult role. But the role to protect every Jew in the world is something that is the responsibility of all of us, not just me. And we are going to do this together. We are going to make the world safer. We're going to lower the rhetoric in some of the countries. And we're going to actually challenge people and challenge governments to be held accountable for what they actually say they're going to do. And maybe they don't do it. But we are going to be a guard. We're going to be proactive. And if there's anything that I could change about the title of Ambassador at Large or Special Envoy to combat anti-Semitism, I would like to get to using the term pro-Semitism. We need to be pro-Semitic. And we need to educate. I said that at my Senate hearing. And for those of you who want to know why it takes so long, there's about 2,800 pages of all my business. They don't expect businessmen to go into government to serve.
Thank you, sir. So when we think about the challenges of anti-Semitism, not just domestically, but around the world, it could be overwhelming. Right? We speak to groups all the time. We hear about how do we deal with the political problems? How do we deal with the different anti-Semitism coming from the right, from the left, from Islamists, etc. And it can be overwhelming on a personal level. You're now tasked to deal with that professionally. Now, as you're embarking on this journey, have you thought through sort of what are the main goals you're trying to achieve, let's say in the first 12 to 24 months in this role?
I don't even think it's 12 to 24 months. The president is not someone that likes to wait 12 or 24 months. He would like results. I think it's very important for two things. One, I'm going to share with you just an incident in case you think that anti-Semitism isn't alive and well. 2 nights ago, I was at the Waldorf, walking into the Waldorf Hotel, and I was literally accosted by people screaming, "Baby killer, free Gaza, Palestinian, you kill people, and I'm not going to leave." And he's telling the security guard at the Waldorf, "I'm not going to leave until this guy goes into the hotel. He's not going to stand here and be in the street with me." Well, obviously I didn't move, and I think this gentleman did not know who I was, and will be quite sorry shortly that he did that. But it shouldn't be, it takes me to have to do something. We have to be better at what we do. The goal is immediately upon confirmation, lowering the rhetoric around the globe. We have a very unique chance in the next 24 months. But even starting today, we have countries within the Gulf states that want to have better relations with America and Israel, have reached out, asked me to visit countries that you would not have ever dreamed about. And the president is sending a very strong message. Think about it. Ironically, I get off a plane. I am the president's representative, and I am walking off with a yarmulke. And I have kosher food, and embassies will have kosher food. It is a game changer. The appointment is a game changer. And it's not about history. It's about education. And how do we educate? Indonesia has 350 million Muslims living in the country. How do we change their textbooks? How do we hold the people in Gaza accountable that if America is paying for UN textbooks and supposedly the changes are made, why are those textbooks not being used and why are they using their old textbooks? We have to teach people it's not okay to educate your kids to be a martyr. Okay? And we have to hold those countries accountable. How do we battle anti-Semitism on the internet? How are we doing better on algorithms? What companies can we work with? We are going to have a whole division within the office of the Special Envoy to combat anti-Semitism that is going to work on technology and working with the greatest leaders in technology, many of whom are Jewish and have offered their assistance. The office is going to be revamped entirely to be one of the highest profile offices in the State Department because that's what the secretary wants and that's what the president wants. So we are going to have a very, very strong mandate on education, on protecting people, and how are we able to make a huge difference in combating what goes on. And we speak about, and coming into the room, is a gentleman who absolutely has been a stalwart of the Jewish community, Senator Fetterman. And I'm going to share with you a story for those of you who think anti-Semitism is not a bipartisan problem. I met the senator early on when I had been nominated by the president to be an ambassador to combat anti-Semitism, and the first thing he said is, "I'm going to support you." This was not a long interview process. This is a battle that needs to be fought, and it's the right battle. So I thank you very much. We have a chance to educate. We have to transform our systems, and what we're not doing now is giving Jewish children, Catholic children, American children a reason to understand why it's not okay to hate. It becomes passé to hate. It becomes the norm. If we don't do better about doing that, then we are to blame. And all of us in this room, wherever we are in the world, have that same responsibility. I think you were with me when I spoke to the mayors and I said, you are the leaders. You don't look to me to confront Holocaust deniability. You know how you confront Holocaust deniability if you're even Jewish or not Jewish? Go to the cemeteries at Normandy. Go look at what General Eisenhower said, that if we don't remember what occurred, we are guilty. We have to do a better job of absolutely educating people as to why history cannot repeat itself. And October 7th is the never again after the never again. So how do we change that? And we change that collectively. And that means all the Jewish organizations working together in some capacity.
Rabbi Yehuda Kaplun, this doesn't, we need to come back to do the actual podcast formally so I can call you ambassador in an appropriate way. Thank you so much for your efforts. Everybody here wishes you collectively a lot of luck in this important role. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You deserve a clap. You deserve clapping hands before we start. Thank you very much, Senator, for joining us. A few weeks ago, you won the World Jewish Congress, honored you as one of the Jewish people and Israeli defenders. Can you tell me a bit, how did it all started? Is it just a few years ago? Because I think all of the Israelis know you very well about how much you're a staunch supporter when it comes to Israel. How did it start, this burst of saying it out loud publicly?
I'm a student of history. I've studied, the Holocaust and the history that extend way back earlier about that, and that what really drove it home to me on a very more personal level, and as not a member of the community, I can't speak directly on what it must feel like and the kinds of issues that you're faced. But after the Tree of Life massacre, I was campaigning for lieutenant governor, and I was in Philadelphia campaigning. And I had a friend that lives across the street from the synagogue and said that someone's in there shooting people. And I just jumped in the car and sustained my campaign. Went to a gigantic candlelight vigil in Squirrel Hill. That's the heart of the Pittsburgh Jewish community. And I can't imagine this. Somebody would just barge into your house of worship and start shooting people. And that was just so shocking. And now, after what happened after 10/7, but I've always committed. I did an interview before during the primary, and I said, look, I'm open-minded, but if the shit hits the fan, I said, that's a direct quote, I'm going to go all in and back Israel. And I had no idea at that time there could be like a 10/7. My views have been consistent. And then 10/7 really clarified the moral clarity for me. My God, I've watched the video and what's happened. And so for me, it's the wrong word, but it was been very easy for me because it's just I've never questioned that, but the moral clarity has been front and center, and that not only hasn't diminished, it actually continues to intensify during the 2 years of the terrible Gaza war. But now where Israel has positioned itself, it's something we should all celebrate. That peace is possible, but can't ever forget that there's still one less hostage that still has to be brought back home. I'm so sorry for what the community has been through after 10/7, but will be defined as a supreme honor of my time in the Senate to proudly stand with Israel.
So you touched down about Gaza. I want to ask you, do you think at the end Israel should go all in and return to Gaza and destroy Hamas? Or do you believe there's other forces who can do this job well?
I'm looking at it through the lens here of being as a Democrat here in Washington, D.C. through the entirety. And our party really started to push for a ceasefire, back, in 2024, and when the prime minister spoke to the joint session and, people would turn their back and they wouldn't shake his hand. I mean, that's astonishing. That's outlandish. Not even basic kinds of civility. If you have to pick a side, and if you're going to criticize someone, I'm going to blame and attack Iran and Hamas. I'm certainly not going to turn that towards the prime minister. So if they hadn't have been pushed into a ceasefire, Sinwar would be alive. Hamas would still remain in strength. And Hezbollah would still be able to fire thousands of rockets into Israel. And Iran could be acquiring a weapon. Now, how could you allow that to ever do that? Absolutely. But they pushed through that, and then right after the beepers hit, and then they started to take out the leadership of Hezbollah, you can't only do anything but celebrate that. I mean, that's absolutely appropriate and necessary. And I was the only Democrat that was calling to bomb the nuclear facilities as well, too. How can we allow that? That's crazy.
Do you think the U.S. should do it again with Israel if Iran tries to renew the nuclear and ballistic program? Should the U.S. go in with Israel again?
Well, that was an attention getter that we can reach you and hit you with that. And that rancid nation can't keep It can't keep water in their taps. You know, that regime, that terrible regime. But they've spent billions to build the nuclear weapon, billions of dollars to destroy Israel with those proxies, and now that's the truth there. If they could just stop focusing on trying to destroy Israel and build their own nations, that's the truth. And if they continue to acquire a nuclear weapon, I'm going to consistently support attacking and destroying those facilities well too. There is no peaceful purpose to have 90% enriched uranium. Absolutely. So I would be the guy to vote for that or to support that. And that power reserves with the president. I'm not looking for Congress to do that kind of a thing. You know, our Congress shut our government down. We can't even kept it open. You know, they need to have the flexibility to do important things like hitting the Iranian nuclear facilities as they've done.
I want to ask you about the Mamdani issue. You even criticized him, said he's not a Democrat. My question is, do you think this shows something that maybe reflects on other places, and the question, should Jews feel safer in the United States? That's one thing. And the second question is, were you disappointed from some of your colleagues who supported Mamdani during this mayoral race?
Oh, wow. I mean, I couldn't, if I was a member of the Jewish community in New York City, I mean, I can't imagine how they would, anyone in that community would vote. I mean, that's their right, and that was New York City's choice. But that was effectively a 50% plus one vote, you know, kind of an election. So that means if for one person that voted for him, one actually opposed him, and they had two opponents that really were deeply, deeply flawed or damaged for whatever reasons. So in a divided city at that point, I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to protect and you know, I just can't ever defend some of the things he's said or this kinds of a language. And people with my party too, to defend things like from the river to the sea, or to globalize the intifada and thing. We all know what that really means. And, you know, if our party continues to back away from that, the people that are running for the Senate too, parts of their campaign have been defined by being anti-Israel. I'm going to send back their money, and I'm going to adopt these strong anti-Israel things. That's a betrayal of our party's values. You know, there's only one nation in the region that live the kinds of values that we aspire for, and that how we live here in our country. I can't imagine how we can firmly stand with Israel, but that's been motivated by parts of the party's base. And part of that was turned after social media. TikTok and other social media platforms, the anti-Israel kinds of views outnumber it 17-1% online, and that's poisoned an entire generation in our nation as well too, with this strong kinds of anti-Israel views that are absolutely devoid of context or the history, or in some cases are absolutely not even true in fabrications.
I want to ask you, you're not an Israeli government official advisor, you don't get salary from them, but what do you advise the Israeli government to do in order, you know, to change the landscape here regarding the support of Israel? We're seeing much more protest, we are seeing much more anti-Israeli sentiment, by the way, also from far-right Republicans and Democrats. What can Israel do better in order to make things, let's say, much more positive toward the state of Israel and the policies?
I don't know. That's a difficult question. I mean, just when I got back from New York, I had the supreme honor to spend an evening with the president of Israel and the president of Yeshiva University. But I just walked out of Union Station, and there was like this tent city of crazy, screaming, anti-Israel, genocide, John kinds of a thing. And that's after 2 years for that. How can you speak to that? I mean, how can you fix that if people are going to be intense and freezing weather just to scream at a supporter of Israel with a bullhorn? I mean, that's a sad testament, and there's a significant issue without a doubt. And for me, I'm one vote and one voice here in the Senate, but it's going to remain firmly on the side. And I'm happy, I'm thrilled to work across the aisle, like someone like Senator Graham now too. We have a lot of things in common, particularly supporting Israel, and for that. So that's what's entirely appropriate, but that's actually necessary. And now to stand with Israel now. And I think I was the only Democrat that celebrated the peace deal. That's huge, right? I mean, I don't care if that comes from a Republican or Democrat or for whoever, call it what it is. That's a profound development, and you're gonna have to celebrate. So we're in a much better place because of the commitment and the courage that Israel pushed through to what they've accomplished on a military level it's astonishing, and it's a testament to the IDF, and that's why it's an easy vote for whatever is necessary for military, financial, or intelligence here from our nation.
But it's not a lost battle. It's a battle we still can win, Israel, over the U.S. public.
It's not lost, but we are at a significant disadvantage because social media has become a sewer that was polluted with like a strong anti-Israel, and also the media too. And also look at the UN. Look at the UN. I can almost guarantee I was the only UN in my own platform to push back. The UN is now denying the systemic rape and torture of Israeli women and girls as well too. Now they're trying to erase that experience. They're trying to erase the truth of the 10-7.
Thank you very much, Senator, again, for all you're doing for also the Jewish people and the state of Israel. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll be glad if it will continue.
Well, it's been heartbreaking to watch, my party to kind of back away. But for me, more than anything, I'm so sorry for your community, what it's been through since 10-7, but it's been a supreme honor to firmly stand with Israel and the Jewish community here in our nation, but also globally. So thank you for having me here today.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take a minute and introduce one of my great friends and one of Israel and the Jewish community's great friends. From the day he started in Washington, D.C. in the 1980s to becoming the Senate Majority Leader, and now today he is the chairman of the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, which is where Israel gets all of its support. And so it's my honor. I've known him. He's a great American and a great friend of the Jewish community, Mitch McConnell.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Norm. Happy to be here with all of you, and I know there's plenty to discuss these days, but I'll confine myself to just a few points about the U.S.-Israel relationship and how we approach our shared challenges. First, a few thoughts about vigilance. Israel knows better than anyone that peace isn't written into being. And there's a good reason to be skeptical right now about Hamas's intentions. A lot of hope is riding on the success of the ceasefire agreement, but it's important to remember that ceasefire was what we had in name before 10-7. Israel, through great sacrifice and with American support, has indeed created an opportunity for its entire region to write a future of more durable peace and stability. But we cannot mistake Israel's success for our shared enemies' acquiescence. There is every reason to believe that Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and their patrons in Iran remain committed to Israel's destruction, and they don't like us either. To that point, the second point, it's in America's interest to continue giving Israel the time, the space, and the support to defeat terrorist aggressors on its own terms. I've been saying as much since the day savage terrorists stormed out of Gaza, and it appears as much today as it did then. I want to give President Trump credit for backing Israel at a moment of high stakes, for seizing the opportunity Israel created to strike Iran, and for pushing for lasting peace. But ultimately, the pace of progress toward peace needs to be set by Israel. The decision to advance further in the ceasefire framework should be Israel's to make. The Jewish state will determine its own destiny in defense, in foreign and regional policy, and very importantly, in domestic politics. What brings me to the relationship here in America. A point of pride in the U.S.-Israel alliance is the vibrant, accountable democracies that govern both of our countries. As I've counseled fellow Americans before, Israel is perfectly capable of choosing its own leaders and upholding the rule of law itself. And just briefly, while we're on the subject of U.S. sentiment towards Israel, the past 2 years have made painfully clear that the world's oldest form of hatred is still alive and well, unfortunately, in America. I take the efforts on the fringes of our politics to normalize hatred for Israel and the Jewish people very seriously. And I'll continue to condemn them no matter where our political spectrum they come from. Why? Well, because we live in a world dangerous enough without vile threats of division from within. Because strategic interests and moral leadership are not incompatible. Because peace through strength means depend on strong allies. And Israel remains exactly that. Thank you.
Few voices in Washington have been as consistently supportive of Israel as Senator Lindsey Graham. His leadership has played a central role in strengthening military cooperation, securing vital security assistance, and ensuring that Israel's right to self-defense is firmly upheld on the world stage. Senator Graham will now be introduced by Bobby Rechnitz, honorary co-chair of the conference, and then we are going to have a sit-down one-on-one with myself.
Sometimes it's an honor to be able to introduce someone. I think if there's any United States senator who could ever go to Israel and run in the Knesset, Lindsey Graham would win the overwhelming majority. One of our best friends to the Jewish community, to democracy, to America. And I want to tell you that many people in this building and in this city, they work very hard to build a reputation. Lindsey Graham is one of those people who builds character. Everything that he does comes from the inside. So I want to share two small personal anecdotes that I know from experience. A number of years ago, when President Obama was still the president, Lindsey Graham decided that it was time for him to retire from his service to the United States military. So I get a call in LA, Bobby, what are you doing next week? Well, what am I doing next week, Senator? He goes, I want to go to Afghanistan. I'm about to retire from service. I want to go to Afghanistan, and then I want to go to Israel. Could you imagine that? The two places that he wants to visit after so many years of service is to give support to the United States Armed Forces in Afghanistan, and then to continue to Israel to give support to the Jewish state. And that deserves a round of applause. I'll let you in on two more facts that may not be well known because he's too humble to speak about them. And in Israel, for some reason, they may not have had the entire story. But one time he was visiting Israel and he asked Prime Minister Netanyahu, he said, I'd like to go up to the Golan Heights. So they took a trip up to the Golan Heights. Lindsey Graham is looking around and he says, this is quite a vantage point when you look down at Israel. This is a very dangerous spot. I think the United States should probably go ahead and annex the Golan Heights. Of course, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that's a great idea. What does Senator Graham do? He picks up the phone, he calls President Trump, hands the phone, tells him what he thinks, hands the phone to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and that's when he confirmed, I will be annexing the Golan Heights. That is Lindsey Graham, and that's exactly what he does for this country, and that's what he does for Israel. So without further ado, I'm honored to call upon the greatest senator, Senator Lindsey Graham, a dear friend of all of us.
Call upon Amichai Stein to come and do this interview as these two have a friendly connection.
Okay. Remember, when it comes to Trump, the tweet giveth and the tweet can taketh away.
By the way, you know what's the problem for me as an Israeli journalist with the tweets? They come always at 1 in the morning Israel time, and they wake me up. That's the problem.
That's a good prime time, yeah.
It's bad prime time, good prime time to you. For Israelis,
that's our base, yeah.
I need to wake up again. First, thank you very much. Happy to have you here. You know, there's such a lot of issues. I want to start with you about the Saudi issue, which you have been a staunch supportive of this idea, worked on it for years. We're hearing you less talking about it. Okay. Or you're a bit less positive that we're close, or is it reachable, this deal?
Well, good question. You can ask me anything you want to ask me, and I'm going to say whatever I want to say. So this is sort of the way it works. Israel's a good investment for America because we have common values and common enemies. If we had to replicate the capability of the IDF in the region, we'd have to double our military budget. Not one American soldier has died in the pursuit of what Israel has done, not only on behalf of the Jewish state, but I think the region and the United States. So to all those who think that this is we can't afford to help Israel, you're an idiot. We can't afford not to help Israel because Israel does more for us than anybody in the region in terms of our national security. Now, what would the world look like if Saudi Arabia and Israel made peace? Better. The nightmare of Iran is normalization between the Crown Prince and the State of Israel. The keeper of the Holy Mosque in Mecca and Medina recognized that the Jewish people in Israel have a rightful place in the region, that we integrate the economies and we work for peace, not conflict. October the 7th was designed to upend an effort to build on the Abraham Accords, Iran's worst nightmares to end the Arab-Israeli conflict. I went to Riyadh and Jerusalem 8 times on President Biden's watch, trying to help land this deal. We were this close. At the end of that month, we were going to announce a framework of how to get there. October the 7th comes along, designed to do what it did. Harden the hearts of the Israelis and make it hard to sell anything about Israel to the Arab world. There's a reason Hamas filmed it. The Nazis didn't film it for mass distribution. They wanted you not to look away. They wanted you to see it. They wanted to drive the parties apart. They wanted to be brutal, uncompromisingly brutal, and wanted everybody in the world to see it. And so where are we today? Support for a two-state solution is very low in Israel. And Israel's image in the Arab world is equally low because all you see on Al Jazeera morning, noon, and night is attacks in Gaza. Having said that, we have to overcome these problems. Stability in the region and economic growth comes the day that the Arab-Israeli conflict is over. What does MBS want? He wants a defense agreement with the United States and Saudi Arabia like we have with Australia and Japan. That requires 67 votes in the United States Senate to go to war for Saudi Arabia if we had to. If Trump's for it, most Republicans would be for it. If Bibi's for it, most Republicans would be for it. How do you get Democrats to vote for this treaty? There has to be something that would improve the lives of the Palestinians for them to jump on board. And the question for Israel is a entity in Palestine, state, emirate, whatever you want to call it, is it an antidote to terrorism or is it a reward for terrorism? If it's a reward for terrorism, it's a bad idea. If it's an antidote to terrorism, it's a good idea. To expect MBS to recognize Israel as being seen as throwing the Palestinians under the bus is not going to happen. I don't want that to happen. We got off to a rough start, but I admire what he's doing within his country, how he's trying to change the culture of his country, and his willingness to even talk about this is something to be cherished and guarded. How do you do this deal? Hamas needs to go. They will do another October 7th if they can. Do you agree? Hezbollah needs to be disarmed. I'm not even going to approach this subject until I know the major proxies of Iran cannot generate another October 7th. There is no Arab force going to disarm Hamas. Do you agree with that? It's a mythical, you'll find a unicorn quicker than you'll find an Arab force going into Gaza and tell Hamas, you got to give up your weapons. There's only one group that can do this, Israel. It's time to put Hamas on a clock, just like Trump did with Iran. You got X amount of time to give up your weapons under the agreement. If you don't, all bets are off. Send Israel in and wipe them out. You can't have East and West Germany in Gaza, where you got part of Gaza still under Hamas control and you're building high-rise buildings across the street. That, to me, is a losing proposition. Finish them off if you care about peace. Hezbollah. Lebanon is changing. Lebanon can go one or two ways. There is no future for Lebanon as long as they tolerate an armed Hezbollah with a desire to destroy the Jewish state.
Just to ask, Lebanon will not get U.S. assistance until Hezbollah is not demilitarized?
Well, the goal is to put Hezbollah disarmament on a clock. The Lebanese armed forces are weak, not strong. They could be made stronger. How do you disarm Hezbollah if you can't do it diplomatically? I am suggesting to President Trump that it is in our interest to disarm Hezbollah, take their major weapons away, heavy weapons away. They have more American blood on their hands than Hamas. How do you do this? You build up the capability of the Lebanese army, and you fly with Israel to provide air support to go in and take this terrorist organization down. Do what you did in Iran and Lebanon. That may be provocative to some, but it is irrational to expect peace as long as a proxy like Hezbollah is armed to the teeth and Iran can fuel the flames. The last piece of the puzzle is the Iranian regime. I have a bill that would put tariffs on any country that buys Russian cheap oil that doesn't help Ukraine. I'm going to take that same bill, and I'm going to take the word Russia out, and I'm going to put the word Iran in. I'm going to create legislation that would punish any country that continues to buy the Ayatollah's gas and oil because you're propping up religious Nazis. There's one country common to all of this, China. China buys almost 90% of Iranian fossil fuels. They're the largest purchaser of Russian oil and gas. I'd like to have a good relationship with China, but they have to change their behavior. So you can expect me very soon to introduce legislation going after those who buy the Ayatollah's oil and gas.
So,
I don't know what you asked me, but that was my
no, you went for all the region. Okay, we have some countries we didn't touch. But I want to go back about the Saudi issue. So in your view, nothing can go on with the Saudi deal if Israel doesn't do anything actively regarding the Palestinian issue?
No,
The
I'm
Palestinian
saying
state.
that...
Because you said
yeah,
you can't throw them under the bus.
Yeah, I mean, we're here to talk honestly, right? MBS is not going to recognize Israel until he can get an outcome better for the Palestinians or he'll get killed. Period. There are voices in Israel that are living in a dream world. I'm pretty pro-Israel, right? First thing it'd be about being pro-Israel, be honest with Israel. I'm not asking you to create conditions for another October 7th. I'm not asking you to reward terrorism. I'm asking you to be open-minded to end the Arab-Israeli conflict where you're secure in Israel and MBS can move his region forward. So I don't know what happens on the Palestinian component, but I can tell you this, there's no hope for a Saudi-Israel deal unless you do away with Hamas and Hezbollah. MBS is much more willing to talk to Israel because the threats to his kingdom and the threats to Israel have been neutralized. Learn from October the 7th. All the good intentions in the world can be disrupted by bad actors. No more capability to attack Israel like occurred on October 7th by Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Houthis, or anybody else. The day you neutralize that threat, you can sit down and talk about a rational way forward, understanding all the Palestinians are not going to leave, and understanding that after October 7th, Israel wants a better deal than they had before. There's no friggin' way I would ever agree to a deal that didn't have different boundaries after October the 7th than before October the 7th. There's no way I would support any deal that didn't have a component to radicalize the population. You got to convince me you're going to change the school system. You got to convince me that there's not going to be an armed component in the West Bank or Gaza that can generate another October 7th.
I must ask you, last question. There's a big debate in Israel. Is the idea of F-35 to Saudi Arabia a good idea or a bad idea? What's your view? Should U.S. sell F-35 to Saudis?
I think it's the best idea in 3,000 years to get Saudi Arabia and Israel to make peace, to end the Arab-Israeli conflict. The United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia are taking a different path. They're threatened by Hamas and Hezbollah as much as Israel's threatened. The only reason I'm telling you this is I see change in the Arab world I haven't seen since I've been up here. Don't let this window close. Hamas and Hezbollah are not the future. If they're the future, we're all screwed. There is a future, I believe, where the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and others, building on the Abraham Accords, can work with Israel, grow the economy of the region, benefit all concerned, because it's happened in the past. The Abraham Accords are real. MBS desires a new Mideast. He desires to end these conflicts. He desires women to have a better role in life in Saudi Arabia. Bibi desires to make sure that Israel can never be attacked again like they were on October the 7th. There is a unity of purpose here. To my friends at the Jerusalem Post, you're about the only paper I read, so I got to go.
Thank you very much. So we'd say yes on the F-35, I understand. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome Senator James Risch. Jim Risch is the Republican senator from Idaho. He has been a steadfast supporter of Israel's security and of the U.S.-Israel alliance. In recent years, he's led key legislative efforts, such as the Stand With Israel Act and companion measures to oppose international bodies that single out or marginalize the state of Israel, and has consistently spoken out in support of Israel's right to defend itself against Iran, Hamas, and other threats. Please welcome Senator James Risch.
Well, thank you very much. I'm always hate following Lindsey or Senator Kennedy. They're much more entertaining than I am. But nonetheless, we share very similar views on the issue that is in front of us. I want to thank the Jerusalem Post for having me. It's great to be here, as always. Israel is one of America's greatest allies, a vibrant democracy, a bastion of freedom in the Middle East, and our closest partner in countering Iran's destabilizing efforts. Over the course of the last few years, the Middle East has experienced seismic changes for the good, in large part thanks to Israel. Through Israel's determination to rid the Middle East of Iranian influence, often without the support of the United States during the previous administration, it has truly remade the Middle East for the better. For years, President Biden wrung his hands and withheld American support for Israel in its time of need. This inaction only prolonged suffering for all sides and put America's commitment in doubt. That doubt no longer exists. Despite this, Israel has the courage to confront Iran and its proxies, and it decimated them. Israel is truly a model for our other allies around the world. It carries its own weight and more. Earlier this year, Israel gave the world a master class in the American first approach. They eliminated our enemy's nuclear scientists, took out IRGC generals and the regime's terror apparatus, and destroyed missile sites and infrastructure, all with their own forces. And now, in President Trump, Israel has a friend like no other. The president and his administration have worked tirelessly to bring peace to Israel, free its hostages, and bring an end to the brutality of Hamas. Through President Trump's tough negotiations and Israel's courage, Iran is at its weakest point. Families are reunited, and there is hope for peace in Gaza. President Trump's ceasefire was obviously a banner moment for peace in the Middle East in its own right. But the region now has an opportunity to free itself from the grip of authoritarian leaders and Iran terror proxies, and America will be safer for it, as well as Israel. Take, for example, the last year in Syria. This week marks 1 year since the Syrian people ousted the Assad regime from power, ending over 50 years of brutal authoritarianism. The strength and resiliency of Syrians in the face of Assad's repression created the conditions for the regime's collapse and a better future for the Syrian people. This remarkable feat reminds us of the triumph of freedom over tyranny and gives hope for broader peace in the Middle East. And similarly, in Lebanon, the government has made important progress in ridding itself of Iranian influence. President Trump will continue to keep the pressure on Lebanese leaders to ensure they disarm Hezbollah and do not allow Lebanon to threaten Israel's security anymore. We really do have a once-in-a-generation opportunity here. Both Lebanon and Syria are two countries that are foundational to the Middle East and will play a big role in the future of the region. Moreover, they are two countries where direct meetings with Israel counterparts were unthinkable, not just a year ago, but for several decades. Make no mistake, direct meetings with open minds are critical, and I remind both sides of that when I meet with them. Now there's a real chance they may even join the Abraham Accords in the not-too-distant future. In spite of the massive amount of stress that has been placed on the Israelis, the Abraham Accords championed by President Trump are alive and well. Relationships have been tested and have withstood the pressure. This type of cooperation has proven it can save hundreds, if not thousands, of lives. Through all of the events following October 7th and the big changes the region has experienced, we learned that Israel is our best bet in the Middle East, which we've known all along. I will continue to champion the strong U.S.-Israel partnership, including providing Israel the weapons it needs to defend itself. To promote continued stability and to protect our national security, we also need to continue deeper cooperation among our allies across the Middle East. Thanks in large part to Israel, the region stands on the brink of a new era of peace. We must work with our partners and urge them to seize this pivotal moment. And I don't know whether you have time or not, but I'm always happy to take a question or two. Who's got a tough one? No, give me an easy one.
I have a hard question.
Norm, you always have hard
Why
questions.
have you focused so much of your personal attention on the U.S.-Israel relationship when the Idaho Jewish community is probably less than what's sitting here?
Well, I always tell whenever I meet with the Jewish groups how much I truly appreciate the support the Israeli community, the Jewish community, has given me over the years. And in Idaho, I have tremendous support. Both of them vote for me. That's a joke. Okay, it's not quite that. Look, Israel is an incredibly important ally of ours. It is the bedrock of where we are in the Middle East. We've always been there. We're going to continue to be there. Israel really is a country that reflects the same values, identical values, that the United States of America has. When you have an ally like that, you got to stand behind them. So that's why I'm all there with them. Great question. This is really easy.
How much, since October 7th, do you believe support Israel in the Senate?
I didn't quite hear the end of it.
How much has it been eroded to support Israel in the Senate?
But yeah, I don't think it really has eroded. How I judge this is how people act, not how they talk. Just before one of the last recesses, I went to the floor to oppose Bernie Sanders, who had 2 resolutions to cut off funding for Israel. You probably remember that. And I stood on the floor of the Senate and said, hey, folks, what are you doing here? This kind of stuff is what encourages Hamas. They were holding up pictures of starving children and all that. And I said, somewhere in Gaza right now, somebody's watching this and saying, do you see this? We got U.S. senators who are joining us. And what we need is more starving children. That's going to get us more help. And I stood up and said, you guys are crazy doing this. And so we voted on that. And we lost a few votes that I didn't think we should have lost. There was a bit of erosion in that. But overall, if you ask me, is there an erosion for support of Israel? I'd say no. I think the tugging at the heartstrings with the pictures and that sort of thing caused people to not necessarily do what's in the best interest overall. But I don't feel that way. Look, this is a bipartisan thing. It's not a political issue by any stretch of the imagination. Admittedly, on our side, obviously, we get all but one generally on these kind of votes. The other side, not as much, but still over a majority, right, Senator Rosen, vote from the other side. So that's good. That's a good position to be in. Great question. And we'll continue down that vein, I really believe. Like I said, I think that erosion, if you would, caused a lot of the stuff we saw in the New York area and those kids in the universities. That is not a nationwide. I come from Idaho, okay? These Palestinian things you saw, we don't get that in Idaho. I've got 2 granddaughters. One graduated from Texas Christian University. One graduated from Cal Poly last year. I said, what was going on campus when these things are going on? They said, Papa, we never saw any of that there. So this, you have a tendency to think it's more than it is simply because it's overblown. Norm?
I just want to say one thing. This gentleman is chairman of what I feel, the most important committee in the United States Senate, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for the State of Israel. And we have never, ever had a stronger friend.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
I have the pleasure of introducing one of the most amazing senators that I have seen in my career. She started out, and her background was president of a shul in Las Vegas, Nevada. And all of a sudden, she was chosen by Harry Reid, out of all the people in Nevada, to be the next senator of Nevada. And she has been unbelievable in her first term. She's only been here one term. And she is actually, well, you've been one going on two, right. And so she is the most outspoken, the strongest supporter. On the Foreign Relations Committee, she is probably, along with Chris Coons, the strongest spokesperson for the State of Israel and against anti-Semitism. And last but not least, she is the sponsor, one of the two sponsors of the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which she continues to try to get enacted, and eventually, hopefully next year, it will be done. She is not only the quality of a president of a synagogue in Las Vegas, but she stands as tall and as strong as any supporter I've seen since Danny Inouye in the United States Senate.
Thank you for the kind introduction. You know, I was a software developer and president of my synagogue, and I am the third Jewish woman and the only Jewish mother to be in the United States Senate. So all that combined in one, we think about cybersecurity, counterterrorism, anti-Semitism, all the things, and there's so many other things we've all done in our personal and professional lives that we know lead us to these moments where we can be leaders. And I thank you for having me here today, and I'm so glad to be here with all of you, leaders, folks who are talking about issues, bringing them to the forefront, and making sure that everyone is always aware of what's going on, and we appreciate that. And, well, it says don't move or touch, but I'm not as tall as everyone else, so I'm just going to do that because, well, I'll move it back, whoever put that sign up. So I am really here today to show that strong support for a U.S.-Israel relationship, well, it's unwavering. And I'm also here to tell you today that regardless of how people may tweet or talk on the news or whatever those things are, it is overwhelmingly bipartisan. And why, I'm going to talk about why it needs to stay that way for the future of Jewish people around the world. Because the United States and Israel, we share a bond rooted in our democratic values. But what makes our relationship so vital today is that we hope to achieve more in the future for our two nations. The relationship is about the future we can build together. Stronger security at home, stronger security abroad, greater economic opportunities, technological advances, a more stable Middle East that benefits everyone, Jews, Christians, Muslims, others, everyone, all alike. And while I'm a Democrat, and many of you here today are Republican, I know we're facing a growing crisis in both of our parties because that is the desire sometimes for extremes to turn their backs on our only ally and the only democracy in the Middle East. The extremes that pull the conversation away from those important middle that we have to stay to take care of the future for the Jewish people, because too many on the far left and the far right, they're using a combination of nativism and anti-Semitism to demonize Israel in hopes of decreasing support for our ally. We can't ever let Jewish issues become a political football. And I'm going to tell you why. When you do that, when it's just the winds of what happens one day here, one day there, then who loses the Jews? We must build for a future, a coalition, and build legislation and policy that stands the test of time. And that means building relationships and coalitions. Nobody knows that better than the Jewish people. We've been trying to do it for thousands of years. And we're going to, God willing, keep doing it. And that's why we're all here today, to speak with one voice and say, That will not happen. Again, building a coalition for the long term. That's what I'm here to work on. And as long as I'm in the United States Senate, I'll continue to work with colleagues on both sides of the aisle. Left, right, center, independent. I'll work with anyone to strengthen, not weaken, the relationship between the United States and Israel. And what many of these fringe figures in both parties fail to realize is that a strong and secure Israel means a strong and secure America. Both of our nations depend on each other for intelligence sharing, for defense cooperation. And both of our nations share an adversary, Iran. The Iranian regime has made it clear that it wants to wipe out both of our nations off the map. Its terrorist proxies like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, they threaten both Israel and American lives. And so by bolstering ties between the U.S., Israel, and Arab partners in the region, we are helping to defeat Iran's grip in the region. We saw a glimpse of that future, the future that could be 5 years ago when Bahrain, Morocco, and the UAE joined Israel in the formation of the Abraham Accords. And as a co-founder and co-chair of the bipartisan Senate Abraham Accords Caucus, I have seen firsthand how these accords have paved the way for unprecedented cooperation between Israel and its Arab neighbors. It's beginning to transform the Middle East in ways that were previously unimaginable. And in doing so, it has moved nations away from Iran and towards the West. And thanks to the accords, Israel began collaborating with the UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco on a growing range of issues, from collective security and intelligence coordinations to shared technological development, tourism, cultural exchange, even sports, healthcare, cybersecurity, you name it. And these nations have begun seeing each other as more than just neighbors or even adversaries. They see each other as partners in a future prosperity that could only have been imagined. And so these new partnerships have delivered real, tangible benefits to more than 100 million people who live in these countries. But more importantly, I believe, is that they're changing the narrative for future generations. Young people growing up in Bahrain or the UAE will hopefully never know a time or remember a time when they were told to fear or hate Israel. They may never know a time when they say, didn't we always travel there? Didn't they come here? As children grow, they will never remember a time that didn't happen. It matters, and young people in Israel growing up with the idea that visiting Abu Dhabi or Marrakesh is normal, and that they have partners across the region who want to build more connected and prosperous future for everyone. These human connections matter. I was able to, in Morocco, buy a Kiddush cup and a mezuzah. Imagine that. Imagine that's in my house in Henderson. All of these relationships matter for Israel's long-term stability, and they matter for regional stability. They matter for American interests because a Middle East bound together by cooperation and shared prosperity and goals makes the United States and our allies safer and stronger. And while the Abraham Accords has been tested in the 2 years since a horrific attack on Israel on October 7th, it is a testament to the bonds that not a single country withdrew from the agreement. And earlier this year, we saw Arabs play a vital role in helping to protect Israel from Iranian-fired missiles. And all of us in the room here know just how important it is to keep Israel safe in the light of ongoing Iranian aggression. It was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that viciously attacked Israel on October 7th, 2023, the bloodiest days for Jews since the Holocaust. More than 1,000 people murdered by Hamas terrorists, and hundreds, including Americans, taken hostage. So many of us here in this room and others who aren't here with us today have worked tirelessly to bring the hostage home, to meet with them, to support them, to hear their stories, to humanize all of this and make sure that we find a path forward for now all returned, save one. It's not the end of the nightmare. They need to know we're still here to support them. And with a ceasefire now in place and only one hostage remains still in Gaza, we're finally able, we hope, to provide a measure of closure for those touched by the horrors of October 7th and begin to build that path forward, because while we grieved those who lost and fought to release those hostages still in captivity, it was important that our support for Israel remained bipartisan and unconditional. It's why I've worked with my Republican and Democratic colleagues to ensure Israel has all of the resources it needed to protect itself from, at one point, were almost daily attacks by Hamas. Thank you. It's why today, as the region emerges from over 2 years of war, it is more important than ever for there to be bipartisan support for ensuring robust humanitarian aid makes its way into Gaza and gets to those who need it most, not to Hamas militants. It's why we need a bipartisan and global commitment to rebuild Gaza and ensure that what emerges from the rubble is not hate and terror and more war, but a better future for both Israelis and Palestinians alike. Our next steps must be bipartisan. It's why I've also worked to lead the charge to oppose misguided efforts by my own party, those in my own party, to try to limit or condition our aid to Israel at a time when they need us more than ever. And I can assure you, this Jewish woman can assure you, this senator can assure you that I will do everything I can to strengthen regional bonds, to support Israel, support a path to peace, and not undermine that relationship. You know, earlier this year, I traveled to Israel, the West Bank, Jordan, and Iraq. I met with heads of state, government leaders to discuss more ways the United States can help facilitate. Can I finish?
I was told to intervene.
Is it okay if I finish? I have a few more minutes. No one's ever said that Jewish woman goes short. I've sat behind a lot of rabbis here. I try not to go as long as their sermons, but I will try to do that. But I would like to finish. I think it's really important that everyone hear from me. So if you don't mind that I take 2 more minutes of your time, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, one message that I heard over and over as I continued to travel to the region is that the continued desire to continue strengthening the united front against Iran, and we have a unique opportunity right now. Because in spite of the past, in spite of old conflicts and devastation, I'm talking about Abraham Accords countries, the leaders in all of these countries and territories have expressed to me their personal appetite for a different future. They want a different future. Country after country, leader after leader, whether I'm there or here, they continue to express this desire, a future defined by partnership, not hostility, by economic growth, not extremism, by cooperation and not endless cycles of conflict. Because when the United States and Israel work together to nurture the future, both our nations benefit. And by widening the circle and building new partnerships with more countries in the region and around the world, we can create a stronger, a safer future for everyone, for Jews in Israel, for the country of Israel, and for Jews around the world. And we push back against those shared threats. We must push forward with shared opportunities. The U.S.-Israel partnership in technology and cybersecurity, in water management, agriculture, clean energy, advanced manufacturing, medical research. I could go on and on. I don't have to tell you why Israel's a startup nation, innovation nation, and how our partnerships help everyone around the world in every sector, and continuing to invest in these areas of cooperation. They fuel not only economic growth, they support jobs, they strengthen our supply chains, and they keep our 2 nations at the forefront of global innovation. And so this is why deepening relationships among the countries with aligned interests through the Abraham Accords, this is why that matters. Not only just for regional peace, but also for American and Israeli prosperity. And that vision, I believe, is within reach. not without hard work. Not without hard work, but we can do it. It requires leadership, American leadership, and we can never walk away, and we can't walk away from that commitment now. And the work ahead is serious. Just because it's hard, we are still commanded to do it. It is our responsibility. And when the United States and Israel stand together, when we lead together, there is no limit to our partnership and what we can achieve for our two countries to come. So I say, Toda Rabba, thank you very much.
I'd like to bring to the stage for an important conversation Yoel Zilberman, the founder of HaShomer HaChadash. 40-year-old Yoel Zilberman is an exceptional grassroots leader and an ambitious community organizer who founded the volunteer organization HaShomer HaChadash, also known as the New Israeli Guardians, to protect Israeli farms and ranches across the Negev and Galilee. He is a man of courage and conviction who served as an officer in the Israeli Navy's most elite commando unit, Shayetet 13, during 2 wars. HaShomer HaChadash is a Zionist, volunteer-based organization that helps protect the land of Israel, emphasis on the land, and connects Israeli society and the Jewish people to its heritage through agriculture. With more than 120,000 volunteers a year, HaShomer spreads the values of civil courage, mutual responsibility, and love of the land. Please welcome Yoel Zilberman, CEO and co-founder of HaShomer HaChadash. All right. Welcome, Yoel.
You know, in the Navy SEALs in Israel, they say that after every hard operation, there is another one. So everybody are exhausted, so...
This is our latest hard operation, but we are going to really enjoy this conversation with you. Tell us a bit about your organization and explain to us the changes that happened on the land of Israel itself following October 7th.
Okay, so I grew up in the Galilee. I grew up as a shepherd when I was young in Moshav Tzipori. And right after the Second Lebanon War, lost 6 close friends of mine. And we got into a very terrible situation. A tribe of Bedouin in the Galilee decided that they are going to take my father out of his ranch, started to cut his fences and burn his fields and kill his cows. And my father was all alone. My brother and I, we both was in the service in the army. So my father, after meeting the police officer of the region, came back home and told us Friday night that he's going to close the business that my grandfather, Holocaust survivor, started. So I told my father over my dead body. The week after, I got a very Israeli flag from one of my officers. And I came back home, and Friday afternoon with my father, we planted a stick with the flag on one of his hills in his land. And I moved to live there. I was sure that it's going to be for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but I lived in this tent for 2.5 years. And this is the way this organization started. And I will jump forward because we understood very fast that it's not just my father. And we saw it on the 7th of October. We saw that when we are not confronting our problems, we're losing our land. And what happened is that hundreds of farmers came to see what happened in my father's fields and asked me to support them and help them to build something similar in the Negev, in the Golan Heights, all over the borders in Israel, because different from the United States, farmers in Israel are not in the Midwest, in the middle of the country. In Israel, the farmers are on the borders. The farmers are the borders. So we understood that we must build this first aid for the farmers. But more than that, we saw that there is no second generation, and there will not be food for Israel. And as you see, you hear Erdogan from Turkey. Right now, 50% of our food coming from Turkey and Jordan. It's unbelievable. And beside that, we saw that this most important classroom is going to disappear because none of the Israeli kids had any experience with the land. when I came here to the States to a training in 2020. I trained in Nevada with the American Navy SEALs, and I was amazed that 80% of the team that I worked with grew up in farms. And the speed that we've been connected in between us was so fast, it was so natural, and it's clear to us that the land, it's not just to produce us food, it's what connect anyone to his state, to his land, to become patriot. And we built a movement that since the 7th of October brought a bit more than 350,000 volunteers to support thousands of farmers all over the borders in Israel. And I will say that we see that not just as a solution for a problem, we see it as the next story of us. We're having a very important conference here of Jerusalem Post, and I'm glad to be here. And I'll say that when we are looking over the story of Israel, and we're looking over the story of our neighbors, the Middle East, so before the 7th of October, everybody was proud to call us the startup nation. And some people call us today Sparta. But I think that part of what we hear now from all of the senators and the people that came and spoke, they're all looking for what is the new story of the Middle East. I was in Syria many times in the last 2 years. I established a new division in the IDF, 4 brigades mobilizing warriors into the battle. And I was in Syria, first time when I came in, I was completely shocked. I saw a desert. It's just back to the Golan Heights. I have my own ranch on the Golan Heights, my vineyard in the Golan Heights. It's all green, fruits all over. You cross in the border and it's desert. And you understand that what people deals in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt, it's not AI. It's water, it's food. And we have an opportunity here to build a new story for Israel and for the Middle East and for the relationship between America and Middle East and India. Israel can be the bridge that building the food solution to be the food supplier and the water supplier of the area. We see the young generation that just ended the war. You should know the young generation in Israel is different than any other similar people in their ages around the Western world or the rest of the world. It's people that know exactly what they are willing to die for, and now they are really trying to find what they are willing to live for. And this mission, it's a mission that it's a bit, opposite from the way we see it, because we always see the land as something that's split between us. But the land can create what we call the Joseph Accords. The land can create a situation that Israel feeding or at least giving solutions and dream about a train that we're building together with the United States from Israel to Saudi Arabia that goes to Lebanon, that goes to Syria, that can go to Egypt. Egypt can collapse very fast. There is 110 million people that right now 98% of their food coming from Eastern Europe. It's crazy. And if something is getting worse, then the 40% less water that they have right now in the Nile, they are not going to go south, they are going to go north. And I think that if we're looking over the situation with Turkey, over the situation that is in front of us, the story of the food and the water, it's not means that we need to take technology out. It means that we need to take the technology in and to build these solutions. To the Shomer, we see ourselves, when you want to take a big boat into the port, you need the pilot, right? So I think that sometimes our job is to be this pilot, these small commando units that support to make it happen.
Can you give us a couple of examples of some work that HaShomer HaChadash does on a day-to-day basis? Paint it for us so that we can really visualize it.
Perfect. So I will say the Shomer, first of all, it's the first aid organization for farmers in Israel. Every farmer that's stuck without hands to pick up his fruits or vegetables, so there is thousands of volunteers, school students, soldiers, university students, companies that come in and volunteering, supporting him. They also support overnight to protect his farm from stealing and burning or any other thing. Also, the Shomer is bringing technology, solutions to build the best and the new greenhouses in the Negev or in the Jordan Valley to make sure that we will be able to produce the food for ourselves. Israel must be food independent, must, as much as possible. Actually, Qatar did it in 2017 because of the embargo that they was suffered from, and we should do exactly the same. This is the lesson. Beside that, we established educational system. We have 7 boarding schools and 18,000 youth in our youth movement, including gap years and everything that you can imagine. We actually see an opportunity that every boy and girl from the evangelist community here in the States, thousands of them will come to Israel and will build new relationship with Israel through the land. Listen, many of them grew up here in the Midwest. We can build this relationship also from Bible stories, to walk the land and then to go to a site in Nazareth, Jerusalem, or any other place, and to start to build a story together again. And again, it's to be here in the United States. We're regular to speak about it in Israel. But the idea of being here, it's to say, America safe, it's Israel safe. It's actually also for the story of Europe. Okay, we see what is going on in Europe. If Israel will be strong, and if Israel will become, let's say, a different positioning for the countries around us, not just about selling missiles, but literally have pipelines of water, okay? So it's a very different, depends on Israel, and it can build a very different story for the Western world, because it can spread from there to Africa and many other places, and it can start right now. It's a good story that we can build right now, and I think that everybody here waiting for this good story, and in the field, I'm telling you, there is a young generation that just waiting to get the tools to explode.
Thank you. That's a really beautiful idea. I want you to take us into what the next steps are for Israel-U.S. cooperation and this program that you mentioned to bring Christians to Israel and work with the land. Can you describe for us what would that look like? What are the programs going to look like? And what kind of work would they need to do once they would arrive?
So I'll say that we made, I will say, infrastructure, the biggest classroom in the world Jewry, for sure. It's a pipeline that's bringing thousands of youth from every program that you can imagine, that when they come to Israel, most of the time they go uptown, downtown, between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. When they come into the Shomer, they actually discovering the state of Israel. And me personally, as a shepherd, when I was young, I knew that the hills where I'm walking, it's exactly the same ones where Rabbi Akiva walked, or Gideon was walking, the judge. It was exactly the same places, like where I grew up, literally. And I think that this is something that can connect very strongly between us and the evangelist community here in the United States. It's to build a future together that speaks about food. The idea, like this idea of Joseph. What was incredible about Joseph is he saw the huge problem, and he saw also let's say, the vision of how it can look like. After that, he knew how to build the milestone to make it happen, and then in the end, he did the execution. And I think this is the 3 steps that we need to go through to bring the young generation, to inspire the young generation, that he can really decide how the world going to look like. Listen, because of the disruption of the world right now, influencing right now in the world, it's influence of 100 and 150 years forward, not less than that. So this young generation, he will be inspired with these ideas, and he will see this better sight, I will call it, these opportunities in the field. Okay, I'm sure that he will know how to do the best execution in the world. You will see back again the startup nation from a different perspective. So we have programs for 2 weeks, 3 months, 1 year, gap year. It's depend on every group that want to come to us, and this is the easy part. And the most important part is to do this switch, that it's not something to be afraid of coming to Israel, but to understand that Israel is the state of opportunities right now for the world. Literally this way.
To your point about the way that people connect, I was covering a press conference with Helen Mirren when she came to Jerusalem to highlight the film about Golda Meir. And she actually talked about coming to a kibbutz as a 17 or 18-year-old young woman. And she came to Israel and did her press conference despite the actors union was on strike. I don't know if you guys remember that news story. And she showed up, and she could have easily not shown up, but she had a sweet spot for Israel in her heart because of this time. Because she volunteered on a kibbutz, and because she had her hands in the soil, and it stayed with her. And she's not Jewish.
You're right.
And so many Christians that I meet that feel this connection to Israel feel it because they had their feet in the soil. So I think what you're discussing is great. Can I take your book and show it to everyone? The Joseph Accords, a strategic plan for food independence in the Middle East. It evokes a strong image for me. I hope it evokes a strong image for you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Kol
My
hakavod.
pleasure.